Chapter 152. Not the Mo clan? The Saber King frowned and muttered, "Then who could it be? Our Mo clan has not offended anyone else. We have not had time to deal with the other targets. Yes, if it is not a clan from lower heavens, where would such a powerful king-level master come from?" Chu Yang was also muttering to himself, sighing and groaning. His eyes were filled with deep thoughts, and he was extremely conflicted. Yes, if it is not from lower heavens, where would a king-level master come from? The Saber King unconsciously followed Chu Yang's train of thought. After thinking for a long time, he suddenly slapped his thigh. Could it be? Who is it? Chu Yang's spirit was lifted and he hurriedly asked. Could it be Golden Horse Rider's department? The Saber King's eyes flashed with wisdom. How about? Chu Yang hesitantly said, "Sir, I really want to say Golden Horse Rider's department, because that would provoke a dispute between the two of you. That would be very beneficial to our Iron Cloud. But it seems like Golden Horse Rider's department has no conflict with you. This guess is too far-fetched. This is not it, and that is not it. In lower three heavens, could it be that there are many king-level masters?" The Saber King was very pleased with Chu Yang's honesty, but he refuted, "Even if it is lower heavens, how many king-level masters are there? But if it is Golden Horse Rider's department, what is the reason?" Chu Yang frowned and tried to explain. Golden Horse Rider's department is already busy dealing with Iron Cloud. Why would they want to create a strong enemy like you at this time? Dealing with Iron Cloud. The Saber King pondered. The matter of you dealing with the Mo clan is not a secret, right? Chu Yang probed and hesitated. What do you think? The Saber King asked. Before dealing with the Mo clan, perhaps it was a secret, but now it is definitely not a secret. That is to say, with Diwu Qingrou's powerful intelligence network, he should have already known about you dealing with the Mo clan. Chu Yang pondered. Perhaps it is like this? Let me think. What do you want to say? Just say it. The Saber King also felt as if he had grasped something, but he couldn't figure it out. Hearing Chu Yang's hesitation, he couldn't help but become impatient and said, "Golden Horse Rider's department is your enemy. Why are you defending them?" "I'm thinking, if it is Golden Horse Rider's department, I'm afraid there is only one reason to open the bottle." Chu Yang's eyebrows almost formed a straight line. "You see, you are now in Iron Cloud Citadel, right? Other than staying in Iron Cloud Citadel, you don't live anywhere else, right? If I were Diwu Qingrou, I would think, why would Mo's people stay in Iron Cloud Citadel? Why don't you stay in Great Jiao for a long time?" Chu Yang seemed to have grasped the main point. The more he spoke, the more fluent he became. The Saber King listened attentively and nodded. "Then I would think, could it be that the Mo clan and Iron Cloud had reached some kind of agreement?" Chu Yang's finger gently tapped on the table. "That's right." The Mo Saber King's expression became serious as he sat up straight. If the Mo clan really helped Iron Cloud, then it would be a big problem. Chu Yang said, "And with Diwu Qingrou's personality, he likes to drag out the danger until it is too late. And at this time, there is a heaven-sent opportunity." Chu Yang thought it through and suddenly clapped his hands. "What heaven-sent opportunity?" The Saber King's breathing became heavy. "Finally, we are about to reach the crux of the matter. The truth is about to be revealed." As he thought about this, he suddenly realized and slapped his thigh. "The grudge with the Mo clan?" Yes, please continue." Chu Yang gave him a thumbs up. "If Diwu Qingrou thinks this way, then he will certainly attack without exposing his identity. Regardless of whether he succeeds or not, our biggest target of suspicion and hatred can only be the Mo clan." The Saber King's eyes were now filled with something called wisdom. "Correct." Chu Yang looked at the Saber King as if he was looking at a deity. Senior, you should really be in the officialdom. With Senior's divine foresight, this kind of meticulous planning, this kind of spinning cocoon in the heavy fog, this is..." The Saber King stroked his beard and said, "Actually, this is nothing. The main thing is that the onlooker sees more clearly." Senior, you're right." Chu Yang kept on flattering him. Then he suddenly slapped himself in annoyance. I'm ashamed. Actually, I'm just a bystander. Senior, you're the one who's involved. I'm really ashamed to death. Ha. The Saber King kindly smiled and confidently said, however, this kind of scheming is truly amazing. A prime minister of lower three heavens actually knew and dared to take advantage of the conflict between us and the Mo clan. Amazing, amazing. Huh. Chu Yang's eyes were full of confusion. He carefully said, Senior, you mean? You see. The Saber King patiently explained. He had never been so patient before. Diwu Qingro attacked us, so we can only suspect the Mo clan. In any case, we are already mortal enemies with the Mo clan, right? Chu Yang's eyes were pure. So no matter what, as long as we can't find the culprit, we will fight the Mo clan. The Saber King said, this way, Diwu Qingro and his people can hide forever. Moreover, we would have prioritized dealing with the Mo clan if we were truly Ironcloud's right-hand man. The Saber King said wisely, Diwu Qingro really understands us. He knows that even if we help you, it is only a temporary measure. Once something happens, we will still prioritize our own matters. This person's mind is truly worthy of being called the wisest person. I can't believe you've even considered this. Senior, I have a question. Chu Yang was like a humble and studious student. The Saber King was in an extremely good mood. Although this matter is flawless, it is still risky. If any expert is caught, or dies on the spot, or is exposed, and is caught by us and recognized by us, wouldn't the truth be revealed? In that case, Diwu Qingro would have one more powerful opponent. Chu Yang asked with suspicion. From my understanding of Diwu Qingro's character, he wants to be safe. He shouldn't do such a risky thing. Yes, this is indeed a problem. The Saber King frowned. Idiot, you can't think of such a reason? Chu Yang cursed in his heart. He looked up and muttered to himself, could it be that Diwu Qingro has a way to get away with this? But what method should it be? He should know that even if he was not exposed, his people would come in a few days. With the three sides facing each other, this matter would be exposed. This is really strange. You are an idiot. You can't even think of such a simple matter? The speaker and the listener were both interested. The Saber King was immediately reminded by Chu Yang's muttering, this matter is very simple. I would like to hear the details. Chu Yang looked at the Saber King in confusion. The Saber King said with a sense of accomplishment, this will depend on those people. If this bastard is exposed, then if I am not wrong, those people will definitely come to find us to explain this misunderstanding and give us some compensation. When he said the word misunderstanding, the Saber King coldly snorted twice and let out a bone-chilling sneer. Chu Yang looked at the Saber King with a flabbergasted expression and said, not necessarily. Such deep hatred, how can it be called a misunderstanding? Unless Diwu Qingro has a miraculous medicine that can steal the fortune of heaven and earth and bring the dead back to life. But such a miraculous medicine is hard to find even in upper three heavens. Diwu Qingro may not have it, right? If Diwu Qingro has such a medicine, I would not be surprised at all. The Saber King looked at Chu Yang in disdain. You're the Prime Minister of Great Xiao. Don't you have any life-saving medicine? What a joke. Hiss, if that's the case, then Diwu Qingro's scheming is truly amazing. Chu Yang sucked in a breath of cold air. Then he shook his head and sighed in shame. I'm not as good as him. I'm not as good as him, no. Senior, even if he came to explain, he may not be able to accept it. Plus, that person is not exposed yet. Why would he come to explain the misunderstanding? Chu Yang took a deep breath and asked again. You are an idiot. The Saber King looked at him resentfully and said, just think about it. If Diwu Qingro sent someone to clear up the misunderstanding and give the Sword King a cure, how much sincerity would that show? With this matter as a precedent, what reason would we have to oppose Diwu Qingro? Wouldn't we feel ashamed? Chu Yang suddenly understood. He gritted his teeth and said, so that's how it is. Diwu Qingro, you are so vicious. I worked so hard to get an ally, And you actually schemed against me like this. The more he spoke, the angrier King of Hell Chu became. He roared and stood up. He was filled with anger and indignation as he said, Diu Qing Ro. I, King of Hell Chu, am irreconcilable with you. You're me. His voice was like a rolling wave of anger, spreading far and wide. Many people heard this long cry of grief and indignation, which was like a heart-wrenching cry of blood. To be able to make such a cry, it was either the hatred of killing one's father or stealing one's wife. Such deep resentment was enough to shock the heavens and make ghosts weep. Senior, King of Hell Chu immediately said to the Saber King in fear, You must not be deceived by that person. Nonsense, the matter is so clear, how could I be deceived? Little Zhen, do you think this old man is a martial artist? The Saber King said gloomily. Yes, 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 Senior is so wise. This junior's heart feels like it has been lifted from a heavy burden. Chu Yang was indeed relieved. Chapter 153. Luckily I succeeded. Chu Yang wiped the sweat off his forehead. This was purely tiring. This job was really not easy. But in the Saber King's eyes, Chu Yang was scared. He comforted Chu Yang, Don't worry, I will not let them off easily. What does Senior plan to do? Chu Yang rolled his eyes. Do you even need to ask? Of course, I will kill them all. The Saber King's killing intent soared. That is too bad. Chu Yang hurriedly said, If they really had such a plan, then they must have brought good medicine. Senior Sword King's injuries are so serious. Chu Yang sighed. You really have a conscience. The Saber King's heart was moved. It would be best to trick them into meeting, then pretend to reconcile and trick them into giving us the medicine. First, we will ensure that Senior Sword King's life is not in danger. Senior and I will work together to catch a turtle in a jar. Let Diwu Qing Ro pay for the medicine and lose his soldiers. Let him know that in this world, there is always someone better. His self-righteous intelligence is nothing in the He-Mo clan. Chu Yang viciously said, Yes. The Saber King stood up and proudly said, This time, Diwu Qing Ro was defeated by my intelligence. If Diwu Qing Ro knew that I saw through his scheme, how would he feel? After he finished speaking, he looked up to the sky and laughed joyfully. Defeated by your intellect? Chu Yang's mouth twitched crazily under the mask. What the fuck? This is the first time I have seen someone with such thick skin. If Diwu Qing Ro knew about this, would he be so depressed that he would spit out 100 mouthfuls of blood and castrate himself? Then he would use the knife to slit his own throat and dig a hole to bury himself alive. This is really an injustice. Minister Chu, I have to go back and arrange this matter as soon as possible. In addition, the people from the clan that came this time must also participate in this operation. The Saber King's eyes flashed with killing intent. Diwu Qing Ro played us like fools. Who does he think he is? Motherfucker. If I don't kill them this time, I will not have the face to stand in this world. Yes, this junior feels the same way as senior. Chu Yang was filled with righteous indignation as he said, Speaking of this, it really makes one laugh coldly. The battle between Iron Cloud and Great Zhao is only a matter of lower three heavens. Why does Diwu Qing Ro want to involve innocent people? This lowly official despises you to the extreme. To implicate the innocent like this, what kind of wise man is he? The first sage? The Saber King thought about how he had seen through the plan of the wisest and couldn't help but feel proud. He thought to himself, the wisest should be me. All right, I'm going back to prepare. You should prepare as well. I don't think you'll be of much use here, the Saber King said with a smile. Of course. With Senior and a group of experts present, this lowly official only needs to wave flags and shout battle cries to cheer them on. However, this lowly official is also basking in Senior's glory and has obtained a great merit. Chu Yang laughed and said, Senior, this junior would like to ask for your help. Chu Yang took advantage of the harmonious atmosphere to raise his request. Diwu Qing Ro is probably here to save an important person that we have captured, but that person is already dead. Is it possible? You're saying that I should find someone to impersonate him? And then take the opportunity to severely injure the person who saved him? It had to be said that under Chu Yang's subtle influence, the Saber King's intelligence was rapidly increasing. Now, he didn't even wait for Chu Yang to finish speaking before he started to answer, yes. Senior is wise. Chu Yang said with admiration. This junior was thinking the same thing, but I didn't think it would be so thorough. Ha! The Saber King laughed and comforted him. Understanding the world is all about knowledge. You are still young. It's inevitable that you can't think so far ahead. Yes, senior is indeed wise. I admire you, huh? Chu Yang quickly raised his request. Then, since this is the case, I'll leave this matter to senior. I agree. The Saber King immediately decided and solved Chu Yang's problem. I will send someone over later. Is an 8th grade revered martial artist enough? Enough. It's more than enough. Chu Yang laughed. Using an 8th grade revered martial artist to set up this trap? Senior, this is like using a butcher's knife to kill a chicken. It's too easy. If that's the case, then this old man can rest assured. The Saber King stood up and said with some reluctance, this old man has to go. He really didn't want to leave this place. In this place, he was overflowing with talent. His mind was so sharp that even he couldn't believe it. Take care, senior. Chu Yang did not forget to flatter him again. Yes, senior's wisdom is higher than the heavens. Your plans are flawless. It's a pity that such a talent is hiding in the wilderness. Look at our Ironclad Nation's Grand Marshal. Oh, Junior, don't dream too much. The Saber King proudly shook his head. He was so excited that he suddenly felt like writing a poem on the spot. I am a man of Jianghu, I should be the soul of Jianghu, killing without blinking is my route. He shook his head. Good poem. King of Hell Chu loudly applauded. Although this poem is only 40 words, it speaks of senior's carefree and unrestrained state of mind. It also speaks of the iron blood of Jianghu, the might of the martial arts world, and the moral integrity of a person. It is as clear as the clear blue sky and the bright moon. Listening to it, one's heart would be captivated and filled with respect. How could it be so good? You are so young and already know how to flatter. A hearty laughter sounded. In this harmonious atmosphere, the two people winked at each other with a tacit understanding. The Saber King was in a very good mood as he laughed and left. King of Hell Chu's mood was 10,000 times better as he laughed and went in. When Wu Qian came in, she saw King of Hell Chu using a children's book to cover his mouth. He was laughing so hard that tears were flowing down his face. His whole body was twitching as if he was having a stroke. What's wrong with you? Wu Qian was startled and asked in a trembling voice. What was it that made King of Hell Chu this happy? This is too unusual. I just heard him crazily cursing Wu Qing. Did I hear it wrong? In order to keep the conversation with the Mo Saber King confidential, only Chu Yang and the Saber King were present. Otherwise, an inexperienced little girl like Wu Qian would have been able to destroy King of Hell Chu's grand plan with a casual smile if she were to be here. King of Hell Chu was still using his mouth to express his joy. His shoulders were shaking like a dog in the middle of winter. After a long time, he finally stopped laughing and returned to normal. What's wrong? Wu Qian was a little scared by his laughter. This question was not important, but King of Hell Chu burst out laughing. His laughter was deafening. Wu Qian covered her ears and looked at him with a face full of confusion. Wu Qian angrily glared at him. Then, she heavily stomped her feet and walked out. She cursed in her heart, he's simply a lunatic. He's incurable. She had kindly asked him what was wrong, but he actually scolded her in such an unpleasant manner. Just as the Mo clan and Minister Chu were looking forward to it, on this evening, Wu Qing's vanguard finally arrived at Ironclad Citadel. In the darkness of the night, they silently snuck in and went straight to Wu Fa's hiding place. It had to be said that Wu Qing's intelligence agency had been operating in Ironclad for many years. This place was truly a secret sect. Wu Fa, the third king-level leader, was on his last breath. The two revered martial artists guarding him also felt like a year. How could there be any miraculous elixirs in such a secretive place? Plus, they could not find a doctor. At most, they could only sneakily buy some medicine and quickly come back. There was always the danger of being exposed. Without any other choice, the two revered martial artists took turns using their pure energy to keep Jianghu Fa alive. These days, the two of them were almost as tired as Jianghu Fa. Being able to keep Jianghu Fa alive until now was already a great miracle. If the reinforcements came a day later, even if Jianghu Fa did not die, the two of them would have died from exhaustion. The moment Kong Shang Xian saw Jianghu Fa, his heart was in turmoil. His nose was sour, and tears almost flowed down his face. Jianghu Fa in front of him was like a skeleton. His whole body was covered in blood. Fresh blood was still coming out from his wounds. When it came out, it was already purplish-black. His mouth was open, trying to exhale, but he had no strength to breathe. It was obvious that he was on his deathbed. Kong Shang Xian looked like he was in his 40s. He was originally a lone thief in lower three heavens. Later, because he offended someone he should not have offended, he had no choice but to flee to lower three heavens and live with Jianghu Fa and Jianghu Tian. During this time, the three of them joined Golden Horse Riders Department and became king-level leaders. The relationship between the three of them was very deep. At this moment, seeing Jianghu Fa in such a miserable state, how could they not be sad and angry? If you do not cry in this life, you are afraid of being sad in this life. These words were referring to two people. Kong Shang Xian and the other lone thief of lower three heavens cried. If you do not see tears, you will not cry. If you see sadness, you will be sad. Sad Saber King Kong Shang Xian. Looking at this name, one would think he was a person who bemoaned the state of the universe and pitied the fate of mankind. However, only those who knew the true meaning of this name would understand how cruel and merciless this Kong Shang Xian was. In this life, he did not cry, but he made others cry. In this life, he was afraid of being sad. Because he was afraid of being sad, he made his enemies feel sad. Seeking revenge for the smallest grievance, this was Kong Shang Xian's personality. Third brother. Kong Shang Xian quickly walked forward. His eyes were red. Chapter 154. How could these proud and arrogant young masters be willing to lose? Not only were they unwilling to lose, but they also wanted to compete with these people to see who would be the best. In their hearts, what was the point of competing with others? If they wanted to compete, they would compete with these people. Because these people were the ones with the same status. Only by competing with these people could they be considered as successful. From a certain point of view, it could also be considered as a success for the clan. Although these aristocratic brothers weren't very valued in their families, and when they talked about their families, they had an unconvinced and indignant expression. In fact, each and every one of them had a very strong sense of family. Whether they were playboys or mischievous, when it came to the clan's benefits and reputation, they were more concerned than anyone else. These were the young masters of aristocratic clans. They were also the unique heritage and pride of aristocratic clans. You want to break through your limits? Chu Yang slowly walked in and asked with a smile. Nonsense, the five of them rolled their eyes. Your rules are so rigid. According to normal calculations, you need to break through your limits at least once every 2 days to be able to break through one level in a month. Breaking through one's limits every 2 days would kill you. But if you train like this, when will you be able to break through your limits? Chu Yang crossed his arms and looked at them mockingly. Are you all stupid? Then how do you want to train? Luo Kadi snorted and wiped the sweat on his forehead. The weakest among you is a martial great master. If you waste your time in this kind of battle, how long will it take? Moreover, without the pressure of life and death, you won't be nervous at all. Also, at your level, as long as you have time to recover your energy, you will be able to continuously produce energy. Although it will not be as fast as the consumption, it will at least prolong the consumption time. Chu Yang said casually, and this kind of battle may seem fierce, but everyone has time to rest. Or rather, you don't want to rest, but when you can't enter the battle circle, it is your time to rest. This time may be short, but it is destined that you will never be able to break through your limits. This is a common problem for martial artists. GMO said, but what can we do? Only when we reach our limits, when we feel a kind of fatigue that is worse than death, when our dantian is empty, will we be able to take a step forward. If you say so, won't we have no hope of breaking through? There's a high chance, but you're just stupid. It's just that I can't find a way to do it. Chu Yang snorted, I can break through the limit 3 or 4 times a day. This was under the condition that I was busy during the day. If I practiced all the time, I would be completely crippled. Do you know what crippled means? 3 or 4 breakthroughs a day. Do you think you're a god? GMO snorted. He didn't believe this. For a normal person, they might be able to break through a few times a day. However, as a high-ranked martial artist, they would be able to produce an endless supply of energy. It was already difficult for them to reach their limit once, so how could they break through 3 or 4 times a day? Pressure. You guys live like princes, what pressure do you have? Chu Yang said with pity. Then, can you pressure us? GMO squinted. Very easy. Chu Yang turned his head and shouted, Gu Duxing, take off your socks. Gu Duxing was startled, but he still obeyed and took off his shoes. Then, he threw out his sweaty and withered socks. Although they were on the island, the moment he took off his socks, Luo Kadi, GMO, and Miao Butong all covered their noses and retreated. After a day of sweaty socks, the smell was much stronger than the smell of salted fish. When Gu Duxing threw them out, the socks actually stood straight on the ground. Now, the 4 of you can train by yourselves. It didn't matter if they were training their fists or their swords. In short, choose the most energy-consuming set. Chu Yang looked at this pair of maverick socks. His eyebrows couldn't help but twitch. He raised his head and looked at the 4 of them. I'll only give you 1 hour. At that time, if any of you still have any energy left in your meridians and dantian, then kneel in front of Gu Duxing's socks, stick out your tongue and lick them. Then, you have to shout to everyone present, I, Luo Kadi, am not as good as this pair of smelly socks. Then, you have to wash this pair of socks in front of everyone. Why is it my name? Luo Kadi said unhappily, why not, I, Dong Wushang, am not as good as this pair of smelly socks? Anyway, it's just a metaphor. At the side, Dong Wushang immediately glared at him. 1 hour? How can an hour be used up? GMO shouted loudly. A few days ago, I was being hunted down. In just 2 breaths, my energy reached the limit. Chu Yang said indifferently, because, from then on, I realized that it only takes such a short amount of time to reach my limit. The key is just the pressure. Okay, you can start now. Duxing, you'll be the judge. After 1 hour, if anyone still hasn't reached their limit, then do as I say. If all 4 of you don't reach your limit, then do the same thing. At most, I'll contribute another pair of socks. The 4 of them pondered at the same time, squeezing out all the energy in their bodies in 2 breaths. Then what kind of pressure was this Chu Yang under? They didn't suspect that Chu Yang was lying at all. Because Chu Yang didn't have any need to tell them, okay. Gu Duxing laughed heartily. With a poof, a ball of mucus came out from his nose on that pair of socks that couldn't be more smelly. At the start, GMO and the other 3 immediately started practicing with bitter faces. If they couldn't reach their limit this time, it wouldn't just be a matter of failure. It would also be a huge humiliation. If there was only one person and Chu Yang proposed this method, he would probably fight to the death with Chu Yang. But now there were 4 of them, and each of them wanted to see the other make a fool of himself. Therefore, every time he practiced a move, he concentrated all of his strength. Luo Kadi, in particular, used almost all of his strength. Just 1 punch was enough to cause his face to turn red. He thought bitterly in his heart, why did you use my name as a metaphor? How can I, Luo Kadi, be inferior to a pair of socks? And it's Gu Duxing's socks. In less than a quarter of an hour, Luo Kadi threw out the last punch with all his strength. His eyes rolled back and he almost fainted. Then his whole body went soft. Chu Yang took a big stride forward and stretched out his hand to check Luo Kadi's pulse. He felt that Luo Kadi's body was completely drained. So, he turned his head and shouted, Luo Kadi has reached his limit. Pes. When the other three heard this, they immediately became anxious. Damn, it's only been a quarter of an hour. Stand up. Continue to fight. Continue to fight like before. Chu Yang kicked this guy's body and lifted him up by the neck. He said sternly, "Quick! I can't fight anymore." Luo Kadi rolled his eyes and hung on Chu Yang's hand like a hangdog. He stuck out his tongue and said, "I'm about to die. Gu Duxing, take that pair of socks and stuff it in his mouth." Chu Yang snorted coldly. Gu Duxing was overjoyed. He used a thin branch to pick up the dried-up ball and swayed it over. "No!" Luo Kadi's eyes revealed a look of fear. Suddenly, he didn't know where he got the strength from. He broke free from Chu Yang's hand and ran away. "Chase! If you catch up, stuff it in his mouth." Chu Yang roared. Gu Duxing roared and chased with all his strength. He was in high spirits. Luo Kadi's legs were weak and his vision was blurry. He kept spitting out white foam from his mouth. He didn't have the strength to curse. His consciousness was also gradually blurred. He could only rely on his instincts to dodge and run desperately. Suddenly, Luo Kadi's speed suddenly increased unknowingly. His originally weak legs suddenly regained their vitality. He ran faster and faster, twisting and turning. However, he still didn't realize it. He was still panting and dodging with all his might with his eyes wide open. Chu Yang gave Gu Duxing a look. "Continue to chase." Gu Duxing understood. He waved his smelly socks and continued to chase fiercely. Luo Kadi's pupils were almost scattered, but his speed was getting faster and faster. This situation left GMO, Dong Wushang, and Miao Butong dumbstruck. Other than Luo Kadi, who didn't know, everyone knew clearly, Luo Kadi had broken through the limit. Not only had he reached the limit, he had broken through the limit. In just a little more than a quarter of an hour, the three of them spat out a mouthful of saliva with difficulty. They seized the time to practice. If Luo Kadi could do it, why couldn't they? Thinking of this, the three of them practiced crazily. They were afraid that they wouldn't have any strength left for every sword strike. In less than an hour, the three of them collapsed from exhaustion. Then, they were kicked up by Chu Yang one by one and rushed to practice. After more than an hour, the four of them were lying on the ground, panting heavily. When they were training to the limit, they didn't sweat at all. Now that they had completely stopped, the sweat on their bodies flowed out like a waterfall. Everyone looked as if they had just been fished out of the water. "I just said that I broke through the limit 3 or 4 times in a day. Do you believe me now?" Chu Yang snorted and asked lightly. The four of them were panting heavily, but their eyes were full of extreme surprise. Luo Kadi reached the limit 3 times and broke through 2 limits. Chu Yang said, "And the three of you, you cheated. You only reached the limit twice and broke it once. You are far worse than him." GMO and the others were depressed. This wasn't cheating at all. Everyone looked on helplessly. In fact, they even used the same method. There was nothing much to say. A loss was a loss. The most precious thing was that they found that this method could improve their strength. Everyone was very excited. Although it was a little cruel, but which battle in the martial world wasn't cruel? At least this method didn't put their lives in danger. Chu Yang nodded and no longer paid attention to them. He floated to the courtyard that had turned into a mess and slowly got into a stance. The four of them were excited. They knew that Chu Yang was going to practice. They all looked at him intently. They saw Chu Yang's body move slowly in a strange posture. Then he suddenly shook violently from the bottom to the top. Suddenly he shouted and punched out fiercely. The four of them could even hear the sound of bones cracking at the same time. Today is little Inchen's birthday. I wish her a happy birthday. Every year, there will be a day like this. Every day I will smile. Ha, little Luo is very cute. Everyone, come and give your blessings. Let's have a lively time. Recommended new book, Heaven Feather City's latest masterpiece, Huadu's Bodyguard. A mysterious super young man with a mysterious identity. He indulges in a bewitching campus. Everyone knows who Heaven Feather City is. Everyone, go and take a look. I believe you won't be disappointed. Chapter 155. Chu Yang's body was unexpectedly lifted up by this punch. He leaped into the air and suddenly struck out a leg. Then, a crackling sound could be heard as he extended his leg. Chu Yang's martial power was naturally much lower than theirs. But because of this, GMO and the others could clearly see the situation of Chu Yang's martial power with their advantage of being a few levels higher. What shocked them was that Chu Yang had only made 3 moves. From his primary energy to his physical body, he had entered a state of overdraft at the same time. Chu Yang did not stop. He persisted and continued to punch. Every punch contained all the strength of his essence, energy, and spirit at the same time. The wind generated by his fists slowly weakened and became silent. Then, the silent punches continued for another 30 or 40 punches. Chu Yang's posture was still the same. Chu Yang's breathing was so rapid that it made the people who heard him worry that his lungs would burst or even pant out of his lungs. After 30 or 40 punches, one of the punches suddenly made a faint, whooshing sound. He broke through the limit. GMO and the others opened their eyes wide and exclaimed. No one understood this feeling better than them. This was a kind of feeling similar to a new life. It was like a phoenix returning to its nest and becoming a Buddha on the spot. Chu Yang's punches slowly became louder and more intense. At the most intense moment, it had already surpassed his previous punches. Then, the sound slowly disappeared. Although his movements were still serious, they also became weak. Another limit. GMO and Dong Wuxiang looked at each other in horror. Chu Yang was still moving and did not stop. This time, his breathing was even more rapid. The blue veins on his temples were pulsating as if they were going to burst out of his skin. His face was as red as blood. Slowly, with a whooshing sound, GMO and the others were stunned. He broke through again. Chu Yang made 3 breakthroughs in a row. After the last breakthrough, he slowly relaxed his body and calmed down his breathing. Then he stood upright on the spot. Gu Duxing and the other 4 people could clearly see that sweat was rushing out from his scalp, forehead, face, and hands. His chest and back were soaked with sweat and stuck to his body. Huge beads of sweat quickly converged into lines of water and flowed on the ground. Slowly, the ground where Chu Yang was standing slowly expanded outwards and gradually turned into a small puddle. After standing for a while, Chu Yang opened his eyes. He shook his head and said with a smile, "I didn't make a breakthrough." GMO fainted at the same time. In less than an hour, he had broken through his limit 3 times. What kind of shocking data was this? And this guy actually said with a gloomy face, "I didn't break through." Still thinking about how to break through. They had also broken through their limits in the last half hour. But they were well aware that they had been forced to break through. And Chu Yang had forced himself to break through. How could they not know the difference between being forced by oneself and being forced by others? Boss. GMO shouted in a nauseating manner, "Boss, how did you do it?" Luo Kadi and the other 2 simultaneously looked at Chu Yang with sparkling eyes. "It's very simple." Chu Yang smiled very easily. "Every time before I practice martial arts, I have to think about the corpses in Jianghu and the broken limbs in the wilderness. I tell myself that if I don't break through today, then it's very likely that I will be like that tomorrow, lying on the ground and smelling bad. I don't want to lie on the ground and smell bad." Chu Yang smiled peacefully. "So, I can only break through." The reason was very simple and clear. GMO and the others all became silent. Forcing oneself like this was too cruel and too ruthless. A man should be ruthless to himself. Chu Yang seemed to have seen through their thoughts. He said in a heavy voice, "If we don't be ruthless to ourselves, then our enemies will be ruthless to us. We can endure being ruthless to ourselves, but if our enemies are ruthless to us, once is enough. As for the method of breaking through your limits, you know it. But I have to warn you, with the strength of your bodies, you can't do it more than 5 times a day." Chu Yang said solemnly, "We martial artists, especially at the level of martial great masters like you, have much stronger endurance than ordinary people. But you are also in the most critical period, which is to temper your muscles and bones. After breaking through the level of Martial Great Master and reaching the level of Revered Martial Great Master, you will temper your internal organs. But during the period of Martial Great Master, tempering your muscles and bones is the foundation of tempering your internal organs. If you break through your limits more than 5 times a day, your bones will not be able to bear it. This situation is not very obvious, but when your internal organs start to temper, you will find that your body can no longer bear it. At that time, even if you train to death, you will not be able to improve your body for the rest of your life. Chu Yang said, "This matter must be firmly remembered." The 4 nodded solemnly at the same time. "Okay, go and rest first." Chu Yang didn't say much. These guys were all very smart. So, there was no need for him to say much. Seeing Chu Yang disappear from the room, the 4 fell into deep thought at the same time. A small martial artist could do something that they, as martial great masters, could not do? How could they endure this? They were simply too ashamed to show their faces. Well, there's one thing I forgot to tell you. Every day after you train, you have to clean the courtyard for me. If there is one thing that is not up to standard, the 4 of you will wash my socks and underwear at the same time. Chu Yang's indifferent voice came out from the room. Fuck, what do you know besides washing socks? Luo Kadi shouted in dissatisfaction. I dare to bet that when boss comes out and sees the courtyard in such a mess, if any of you can escape from washing socks, I will admire you. Gu Duxing smirked. He lifted his chin and pointed at the messy courtyard. I forgot to tell you one more thing. Boss never jokes. Once he says something, he will definitely do it. Ah. The 4 of them looked at each other at the same time. Then they let out a strange cry and rushed out. Where are the tools? GMO shouted. Without tools, how can we clean the courtyard? Aren't your hands and feet tools? Gu Duxing asked strangely, how can you use tools to temper yourself? The 4 of them looked up at the sky and heaved a long sigh. Everyone had an extremely strange feeling. Although they were not the first in line to inherit the family, they were still considered young masters. Now that they were here, they actually had to do hard labor? Thinking about it, they did not dare to be negligent. They used their hands and feet to clean the courtyard. They even used their palms to fiercely slap the courtyard. They hoped that when they practiced martial arts tomorrow, they would be able to clean up less. Perhaps they did not know, or perhaps they were still conflicted about Chu Yang's position as the boss. But what they did not realize was that they were doing things according to Chu Yang's preferences. Moreover, they cared a lot about Chu Yang's opinion. It could even be said that they were very afraid. This was a good start. Gu Duxing stood on the door frame, acting as the supervisor. He thought happily. He admired Chu Yang more and more. He really did not know where this guy who was younger than him had so many strange ideas in his head. Fuck you. Duxing, you are just standing there. Does your waist not hurt? GMO shouted angrily. The other 3 also joined in the fray, denouncing him one after another. Gu Duxing laughed loudly and entered the room. Chu Yang went straight to the secret underground room. As soon as he entered, Mo Qingyu impatiently greeted him. The Hey Mo people are here? Chu Yang was surprised. There was a fight up there. Mo Qingyu's expression was serious. Oh, it was my little brothers. They were learning from each other. Chu Yang finally understood. He suddenly remembered something. The Hey Mo people were basically stabilized. It was time to let Mo Qingyu and Mo Qingwu out for some fresh air. With this thought, he skillfully picked up Mo Qingwu and licked her nose. He smiled and said, Little Wu, big brother will carry you out for some fun, okay? Okay. Mo Qingwu was overjoyed. These past few days, she had been holding it in for a long time. The most annoying thing was that there was only a temporary toilet that Chu Yang had set up. Although Mo Qingwu was young, she was very clean. Big brother Chu Yang, your body stinks. Mo Qingwu covered her nose. Chu Yang smiled awkwardly. He was in a hurry, so he changed his clothes and rushed in without taking a shower. When Mo Qingyu went out, he saw the situation in the yard and was shocked. He almost couldn't believe his eyes. In the yard, 5 people were working in full swing, using their hands and feet to level the ground. Everyone looked like mud monkeys. But when he looked carefully, Mo Qingyu's mouth could not close. The one with his butt sticking out and his mouth puffing out, using both hands to push the ground. Could it be the idle second young master of the Luo clan, Luo Kadi? The one with the nickname Little Wolf? The one with his feet carefully leveling the ground. Could it be the second young master of the Black Saber clan, Dong Wuxiang? The one lying on the ground with one eye open and the other closed, measuring the level of the ground. Could it be the second young master of the Ji clan, GMO? And the one with his feet stepping on the ground? Could it be the number 1 genius of the Gu clan, Gu Duxing? And the skinny one? Although I don't know him, but looking at his posture, he is not much weaker than the people I know. Could it be that Chu Yang gathered all the second-generation young masters of the upper 3 heavens to do hard labor? This is too awesome, isn't it? As far as Mo Qingyu knew, even if their own father ordered them to do this kind of work, they would only get the back of their heads. Yet, Chu Yang was able to make them obediently work for him. What kind of skill is this? Is Chu Yang not afraid of these clans finding out and tearing him apart alive? Mo Qingyu was an important king-level master of the Mo clan, and he was also the protector and guide of young Miss Mo Qingwu. Of course, he knew the young masters of these clans. Because the future competitors and allies of the Mo clan's young masters were these people, he had to remember them. Chapter 156. Normally, these people were called the protectors of the clan. They were not given the opportunity to get close to the core of the clan, but their martial prowess was nurtured at all costs. In other words, these people were the future generals of the clan. They were the future candidates to lead the charge and break through enemy lines. They were the future candidates to become elders. If Mo Qingyu could not remember and recognize such important people, then he would become a joke. The 5 people who were in full swing suddenly felt that something was wrong behind them. They turned around and saw the shocked middle-aged man with his mouth agape. He had the same expression on his face. Why is the king-level leader of the Mo clan here? Why you here? They all opened their mouths at the same time and then closed their mouths at the same time. They looked at each other and were all confused. I took them in. At that time, I saw that one old and one young were homeless, so I took them in. Chu Yang carried Mo Qingwu with one hand as he walked out of the room. Homeless? GMO and the others could clearly hear their jaws dropping. The king-level leader of the Mo clan was homeless? This was especially true for Luo Kadi. He looked at Mo Qingyu with a hint of hostility. The Luo clan and the Mo clan had never been on good terms. Even though they had never openly offended each other, there was always friction in the dark. This was because the 2 clans were too close to each other. Within a radius of 500 miles, there were 2 great clans. For the Luo clan and the Mo clan, this was like a bone stuck in their throats. They had to spit it out. However, in terms of strength, they could not do anything to each other. At this time, Mo Qingwu struggled out of GMO's arms and happily called out, "Brother GMO." GMO was shocked. He rubbed his eyes and said in disbelief, "Xiao Wu? Why are you here?" Mo Qingwu giggled as she dashed over. GMO held her in his arms. His joy was evident on his face. While he was talking to Xiao Wu, he suddenly felt an extremely sharp gaze on his back. It was as if there was a knife on his back. Immediately after, Chu Yang rushed over and snatched Mo Qingwu from GMO's arms. He said in an unfriendly tone, "You two know each other?" GMO was furious. It was a reunion after a long time, but she was snatched away? He glared at her and said, "My mother is her aunt. Do you think we know each other or not?" "Oh, so that's how it is." Chu Yang suddenly felt relieved and said, "Then it's all right." He scratched his head and grinned awkwardly. Then he put Mo Qingwu down. However, he still had some doubts in his heart. Just now, I said that GMO is the son of a concubine. But Mo Qingwu's aunt could be said to be the daughter of a noble family. She was the younger sister of the clan head of the Mo clan, so how could she only be the concubine of the clan head of the Ji clan? This seemed a little inconceivable. Could it be that there was something more to this? Chu Yang muttered in his heart. At this time, Mo Qingyu slowly explained why he was here. Hearing this, GMO couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. He walked in front of Chu Yang, bowed deeply, and said in a sincere tone, "Big brother, thank you for saving my cousin." "Ha." Chu Yang was in a good mood. "What did you call him? Boss? He is your boss?" Mo Qingyu's eyes widened like a bull's. He pointed at Chu Yang in disbelief. "Yes, he is my boss. What's wrong?" GMO rolled his eyes and said in an unwilling tone. He wanted to cry but had no tears. "Old Mo, don't ask anymore. This young master has boarded a pirate ship. You guys are here, doing this?" Mo Qingyu was still in a daze. GMO couldn't help but sigh as he thought about the past. He rolled his eyes and thought, how could it be only this? If I don't do well, I still have to wash my smelly socks. But this matter needs to be kept a secret for as long as possible. It is too shameful. Good, very good. Mo Qingyu suddenly laughed out loud. He pointed at Luo Kadi and said to Chu Yang, "Little one, train that little one for me. If he dies, I will take responsibility." Chu Yang was sweating profusely. Mo Qingyu was a king-level master, so he naturally wouldn't stay with these youngsters for long. After some small talk, he went to the lake alone with his hands behind his back. He wanted to feel the energy of heaven and earth to heal his injuries. Meanwhile, GMO was happily chatting with Mo Qingyu. From time to time, bursts of laughter could be heard from both the adult and the child. They were very happy and harmonious. Chu Yang's eyes were burning with anger as he looked at him. The more he looked at this guy, the more he felt that he deserved a beating. "Brother GMO, I want to have a martial arts duel with you." However, GMO quickly regretted it. Mo Qingyu stood up and pointed at his nose. "I want to have a sword duel with you." "A sword duel?" GMO's mouth was wide open. "Yes, a sword duel. Do you remember when you brought a sword to my house during the New Year? At that time, you were very arrogant. You even broke my second brother's sword." Mo Qingyu pouted. "Today, I want to take revenge." GMO opened his mouth and swallowed his saliva. He looked up at the sky and didn't know what to say. "A sword duel. Let's teach him." Luo Kadi and Ji Butong were cheering on the side. Dong Wushang also raised his fist and cheered for Mo Qingyu. Such a beautiful and cute little girl, everyone liked her very much. Even Luo Kadi, whose clan was hostile to Mo Qingyu, could not bring himself to dislike her. Everyone was on Mo Qingyu's side, waiting to see GMO make a fool of himself. "How can I have a sword duel with you?" GMO said carefully. "Xiao Wu, why don't I tell you a story?" "Sure." Mo Qingyu clapped her hands. Everyone else sighed in disappointment. Children are so gullible. Looks like we won't be able to see the joke? Well? GMO only said a few words. "I've heard it." Mo Qingyu pouted. "Big brother Chu Yang has told me." Then, he's told me too. He's told me too. GMO broke down. Courtesy of Benja. "Big brother GMO, you're so useless." Mo Qingyu wrinkled her little nose and looked at GMO in disdain. "You know so few stories, and they're all told by Big Brother Chu Yang." GMO was dumbfounded. He was so young, how many stories could he have in his mind? To be honest, it was already very good to be able to remember 3 or 4 of such stories. And these 3 or 4 stories were specially prepared for Mo Qingyu. Once he encountered them, he would take them out and present them as treasures. Because he always knew that Mo Qingyu liked to listen to stories. But he didn't expect that they were all outdated. Mo straightened up with a long face and looked at Chu Yang. "Boss, why are you so knowledgeable?" Chu Yang also sighed, feeling a little sad in his heart. For a moment, a feeling of sympathy for fellow sufferers arose spontaneously. He thought to himself, "Why am I so knowledgeable? You'll have to ask your cousin. Big brother GMO, are there any more stories?" Mo Qingyu shook GMO's hand gently. Seeing this expression, Chu Yang immediately turned his head sympathetically. GMO spread out his hands helplessly. "No more. I want to compete with you in swords." Mo Qingyu shouted angrily. This time, she was even more imposing. GMO slipped and almost fell to the ground. "Little Wu, competing with swords is not fun." "Then tell me a story." I really don't have any more. GMO was so anxious that he stomped his feet. He couldn't help but bow to Gu Duxing, Luo Kadi and the others. Brothers, help me out, this is an emergency. Tell me a story. No. Gu Duxing and the others held back their laughter. French. At the same time, they were deliberately laughing at him. Compete with me in swords. Mo Qingwu didn't give up. After we compete with swords, everything will be fine, right? GMO asked hopefully. Yes, it seems to be fine. Mo Qingwu bit her finger and thought seriously for a while. Then, she said with uncertainty, okay, I'll compete with you in swords. GMO stood up with a heroic and tragic expression. He grabbed the scabbard and thought to himself, I'll just clash with her weapon a few times and then say that she won. Who knew that Mo Qingwu would suddenly jump up with a broken scabbard in her hand? She waved it fiercely. A red light almost blinded GMO. In shock, he controlled his strength and blocked with his sword. Crack. GMO was stunned. Luo Kadi was stunned. Gu Duxing was stunned. Everyone was stunned. The sword in GMO's hand was broken into 4 pieces. What saber is this? GMO's head was covered in cold sweat. Looking at the saber surrounded by red light, he turned pale with fright. Brother Chu Yang gave it to me. Mo Qingwu proudly held the saber and nestled in Chu Yang's arms. Brother GMO, do you dare to break my second brother's sword in the future? It seemed that the relationship between little Wu and her second brother Mo Tianji was really not ordinary. Chu Yang thought to himself. I won't dare to. GMO wiped his sweat and still had some lingering fear. Fortunately, I used Luo Kadi's sword. If I used my own, this would be really bad. What? My sword? Luo Kadi was originally smiling from ear to ear, full of schadenfreude. Who would have thought that things would suddenly take a turn for the worse? GMO actually used his own sword? He jumped over to take a look. Immediately, his nose became crooked from anger. He shouted with a heart-wrenching cry of blood, GMO, you damn pig gong. You should be hacked to death by 1,000 knives. You should be hacked to death by 1,000 knives. But, my sword. GMO ran away like a wisp of smoke. He turned back and said, it's just a sword. Look at you, this is my fiancé's birthday gift to me. Luo Kadi was so angry that he couldn't take it anymore. He jumped up and chased after him. The two of them, one chasing and one running, circled around this small island a few times in a split second. Little Wu, come here. Chu Yang's face darkened. Brother Chu Yang. The little loli nervously bit her finger. In the future, you can't do this to your family, okay? Chu Yang said with a heavy face, look, your brother Luo is so sad. He suddenly remembered that if Mo Qingwu used this saber to compete with others, sooner or later, she would cause trouble. Brother Chu Yang, I won't dare to. Mo Qingwu was about to cry. Okay, just remember. Chu Yang comforted her. Chapter 157. A fiancé is... Chu Yang was suddenly at a loss for words. What was a fiancé of Wind and Rain Pavilion? A fiancé, what else could it be? If he had to answer this question, it was really not easy. Du Xing, what is a fiancé? Chu Yang turned around and asked. This. Du Xing scratched his head and said with a face full of embarrassment, it's really hard to say. Dong Wushang, what is a fiancé? Dong Wushang was startled and asked back, what is a fiancé? What is a fiancé, Brother Chu Yang? Mo Qingwu asked anxiously. A fiancé is... Seeing that these guys could not be pointed out, Chu Yang had to use his own brain. A fiancé is a future wife. Yes, that's it. Future wife? Mo Qingwu blinked, puzzled. This... Chu Yang's forehead was sweating. His two hands were randomly grabbing the air. Suddenly, an idea came to his mind and he said, just like your father and mother. Your mother is very close. She was your father's fiancée when she was young. Do you understand? Chu Yang asked. So it's like this. Mo Qingwu suddenly realized, is a fiancé always together? Yes, they will always be together in the future. Chu Yang wiped his sweat. And you have to take care of your fiancée. You can't make her angry or sad. Yes, in short, a fiancé is the person you have to treat the best to, and the person who treats you the best. Then, so good? Brother Chu Yang, can I be your fiancé? Mo Qing Wu asked shyly. Her long eyelashes fluttered, full of reverie. Gu Du Xing, who had been eavesdropping with a strange smile, choked and coughed. Su Butong and Dong Wushang also laughed. Yes. Good. Chu Yang happily and contentedly said, Then from today onwards, little Wu is my fiancé wa? Wahahaha, I'm also your fiancé wa? Mo Qing Wu also laughed complacently. You can't make me angry, you can't make me sad. If there's anything delicious, you have to give it to me. If there's anything fun, I want to play. If there's a good story, I want to listen to it first. Chu Yang broke out in cold sweat. So this is what this little lowly likes. Dong Wushang laughed for a while, then suddenly said, Little sister, can I take a look at your saber? Dong Wushang was a member of the black saber aristocratic family, so he was naturally very sensitive to sabers. Gu Du Xing and the others, including GMO and Luo Kudi, either forcibly refrained from asking or ran out in order to avoid arousing suspicions. Luo Kudi's sword was only an ordinary sword, but he was an enemy of the Mo clan. He only needed to find a reason to pretend that he didn't see Mo Qing Wu's saber. GMO naturally knew what he was thinking and deliberately led him away. Otherwise, with such a peerless saber in front of them, how could the two of them, as members of a martial arts aristocratic family, resist their curiosity? Right now, in their hearts, they already had the thought of treating Chu Yang as their boss. This saber was given to me by brother Chu Yang. Mo Qing Wu's words completely dispelled any thoughts Luo Kadi might have had. A saber given to me by the boss. If I sold this saber, wouldn't that be the same as selling out the boss? This was a great taboo in Jianghu. But Dong Wushang was influenced by his clan and loved sabers to the point of obsession. Such a peerless saber was placed in front of him, and he couldn't even play with it. This was simply the greatest torture. He endured for a while, and finally couldn't bear it anymore, and begged. Mo Qing Wu tilted her head and looked at Chu Yang. Brother Chu Yang, let him see it? Let him see it. Chu Yang smiled in his heart. As long as Dong Wushang saw this saber, he wouldn't be able to leave in this lifetime. This was one of the 12 influential figures who was on par with Gu Du Xing. Mo Qing Wu handed the saber to Dong Wushang. Dong Wushang was so nervous that his face turned red. First, he wiped his hands on his lapel twice, and saw that there was still dust on them. Then, he quickly ran to the side of the river, and washed his hands clean. Only then did he run back impatiently. Once he was far away, Mo Qing Wu's temper almost flared up, and she almost put the saber away so that he wouldn't see it. Carefully holding the dreaming of a gentle dance saber in his hand, Dong Wushang had an infatuated expression, as if he was looking at the lover of his dreams. He gently stroked the saber and gently waved it twice. Then he looked at the waving saber in a daze, as if he was looking at his own dream. Dong Wushang sighed softly. He turned the saber around and gently cut the arm that was holding the saber. Blood immediately flowed out. Mo Qing Wu cried out in surprise. Dong Wushang looked as if he was on a pilgrimage. His face was solemn as he dripped a drop of his blood on the saber. Then he straightened the saber, and the blood flowed down the saber without stopping. When it was about to reach the hilt, a hazy red light flashed, and the saber suddenly turned around. That drop of blood quickly flowed down the tip of the saber. Finally, the blood dripped from the tip of the saber and fell to the ground. The saber was clear and bright, and there wasn't the slightest bit of blood left. Dong Wushang raised his head to the sky and let out a long sigh. He said, "A peerless treasured saber, any ceremony is worthy of it." This kind of ceremony of watering the treasured saber with the blood of the hand holding the saber was the highest respect a saber user could give to a saber. It was also the most ancient and solemn ceremony in the land of saber cultivation. "Wushang, do you like it?" Chu Yang asked with a smile. "I love it as much as my life." Dong Wushang sighed despondently and reluctantly handed the saber to Mo Qingwu. Seeing Mo Qingwu sheathe the saber into the tattered scabbard without any care, the muscles on his face twitched again. If you can stay, I will find you a saber that is not inferior to this saber, Chu Yang said indifferently. Really? Dong Wushang stood up abruptly and looked at Chu Yang passionately. Really? I, Chu Yang, always keep my word, Chu Yang said solemnly. Boss. Dong Wushang was so emotional that his face turned red. He turned around and knelt down. Boss, I beg you, you must find me a saber. After seeing this saber, I won't be able to sleep at night. Chu Yang was taken aback. He didn't expect Dong Wushang's reaction to be so intense. You are not a saber user, so you don't understand. A saber user needs a saber. Dong Wushang raised his head proudly. The saber is the king of weapons. Since time immemorial, the first metal weapon that appeared was the saber. The saber is also the ancestor of weapons. The saber's position is the highest. In the list of weapons, the saber will always be number one. Dong Wushang's eyes shone with brilliant fanaticism. As a saber user, it is also the noblest group of martial artists. Since ancient times, no one has ever reached the peak of saber cultivation. There was no end to the saber. You will never understand the attraction of a good saber to a saber user. To a saber user, the saber is his whole world. It is his parents, his wife, his lover, his daughter, his blood, his soul. And I, Dong Wushang, have sworn since childhood that I will be the number one saber user at the peak of saber cultivation. Dong Wushang said fanatically. And finding a saber that is compatible with my life and soul is as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Dong Wushang said, as long as boss can give me such a saber, I will work for you for the rest of my life. It's not that serious. It can't be considered working for you, Chu Yang said seriously. What I lack are brothers, not subordinates. What I lack are brothers who are willing to climb to the peak with me, to wave the winds and clouds, and to dominate the world. What I hope is that in my life, I can always have a few good brothers who will never leave me, who will take care of me with all sincerity, who will live and die together. Chu Yang said deeply and longingly, I hope that I can do anything for my brothers, that kind of feeling where I have no regrets even if I die. That is the feeling of a man. I also hope that when I am at the peak, my brothers will also be there. I will not be lonely. And I hope even more that when my brothers are at the peak, I will not let them be lonely. I hope even more that when I am down, when I am helpless, when I am hesitating, I will have brothers by my side. Chu Yang said very emotionally. A trace of stubborn desire shone from his eyes. Love, the thing that Chu Yang lacked the most in his previous life. And also the thing that he desired the most in this life. I hope to fight with you for a lifetime of glory and splendor, to fight for an eternal legend. And what I hope even more is that if we can become legends thousands of years later, then I hope that in my legend, you will be there, and in your legend, I will be there. In my life, I will not let down the word, brother. When he said these words, even Gu Du Xing and Yu Bu Tong on the side were stunned. The eyes of the two people were shining with light. In a few years, if I become a legend, then I hope that in my legend, you will be there. In a few years, if you become a legend, then I hope that in your legend, I will be there. In my life, I will not let down the word, brother. In my life, I will not let down the word, brother. Chu Yang sighed. He looked at the dusky sky in the distance, and exhaled a deep breath. Brothers are made through hard work. Together through trials and tribulations, together through hard work, together on the road, all the way forward. Only then can one be as firm as steel, and love as hard as metal and stone. I still don't understand the true meaning of you establishing Heavenly Armament Pavilion. Now, maybe I understand a little. Gu Du Xing said slowly. People are divided into 3 classes. Birds of a feather flock together. Chu Yang said quietly, I often hear people say that when I am in glory and splendor, even if you are still a beggar, you are still my brother. Chu Yang shook his head and smiled, saying, "But this is just a metaphor. You have to know that when you are in glory and splendor, your brother is still in poverty. Then, you are not his brother. Or it can be said that in your heart, you still see him as a brother, but in reality, you are no longer worthy of being his brother. It is not that he is not worthy of you. When you are working hard, your brother is also working hard. When you are successful, he is still in poverty. Then, can you give him a hand? To you, it is just a matter of lifting a hand. You did not extend a hand. Then, you only see him as a brother. What is the use? Such a brother has become a tool for you to show off after you have achieved success. How can he be considered a brother?" Chu Yang said quietly, "Sharing trials and tribulations is a brother. Sharing riches and splendor is also a brother. Sharing trials and tribulations, sharing riches and splendor is a true brother." Chapter 158. The long night was quiet, the long night was long, the clouds floated gently in the sky, the sound of the wind was quiet, quietly blowing. Chu Yang's young face, under the faint moonlight, was constantly changing. The young man smiled faintly and spoke softly. Around him, the other youths were hugging their knees as they quietly listened. GMO and Luo Kudi also came back at some point. They were sitting quietly on the outside. Everyone's eyes were shining brightly. Emerald Flow Lake's water gently rolled and splashed against the shore endlessly. It was as if it had been like this since ancient times until now. It was meaningful and warm, plain and eternal. Brothers need to be fought with their own blood and tears, not spoken with words. Finding a good brother is much more difficult than finding a good wife. Chu Yang gently smiled. "Friends want me to have one. What about you guys?" "We also want to have one, I do." The youths were full of longing as they smiled. That night, everyone felt that it was wonderful. They all sat quietly. Emo Qingwu was nestled in Chu Yang's arms. She was also obedient and quiet. No one wanted to break this beautiful atmosphere, because this atmosphere was full of leeway. Emo Qingyu quietly sat on the roof. Listening to Chu Yang's words, the corner of his mouth revealed a sincere smile. He recalled the time when he was young, when he practiced martial arts with his brothers. They roamed Jianghu side by side. They rushed in and out of a bloody storm together. They got drunk together and fooled around together. They did everything together. Emo Qingyu gently sighed. How many years has it been? How many brothers had disappeared just like that? How many are left? At this moment, Emo Qingyu suddenly made a decision. "When I go back, I must find my brothers and have a good drink. I must have a good and quiet memory." After a long time, Dong Wushang chuckled and jumped into the courtyard that had just been leveled. A saber light flashed as the dark saber technique was violently displayed. He was forcing himself. The other youths looked at each other and chuckled. They all began to practice martial arts. Everyone saw the light in each other's eyes. If they wanted to be brothers, then they must not fall behind. When their brothers were standing at the peak, they must not be at the foot of the mountain looking up. Chu Yang smiled as he watched. He felt the calamity sword in his dantian gently surge. "You already know what a brother is." The sword soul's voice gently sounded in Sumo's mind. There was a trace of gratification in it as it said, "Although it is still a little one-sided, you have already understood some of the 7 emotions of the human world. What I want to tell you today is that love is the most important part of cultivation." "Love is the most important link?" Chu Yang repeated softly, as if he had understood something. The aura of the tribulation sword in his dantian surged violently, and a strange aura rushed into Chu Yang's meridians. The sword's spirit was somewhat gratified, but also somewhat disappointed. "Today, as a reward for you, I will no longer suppress your cultivation. Brothers were also a type of martial arts comprehension. You are enough." In the courtyard, the 5 of them were already exhausted, but they were still stubbornly standing, not falling down. They were using the power of their bodies to cultivate, trying to break through their own limits. All of a sudden, a faint ripple of Yu's aura spread out in the courtyard. As the geniuses of the various big clans, They were naturally very familiar with what such a ripple represented, because they themselves had experienced it many times before, and each time, it was a moment of pride and a great sense of accomplishment. Everyone followed the aura to search. The aura surged, and suddenly, it was as if 10,000 horses were galloping, boiling and roaring. Everyone looked over in shock. They saw Chu Yang, who was gently hugging Mo Qingwu, had a clear look on his face. He was just sitting there calmly, and that obscure aura was spreading out from his body. Breakthrough! Chu Yang broke through? Everyone was so shocked that their mouths were wide open. Only Gu Duxing did not feel any exception. He only smiled bitterly. This little freak, today's matter must have touched his heart. He actually broke through so quickly, the ripple of energy disappeared. 5th grade martial artist. GMO, Dong Wushang, and the rest all heaved a sigh of relief. 5th grade martial artist? Who knew how long he had been stuck here? A sudden breakthrough was not something surprising. Everyone looked at each other and continued to cultivate. However, not long after, another aura rippled out, and the dense aura surged out again. GMO and the rest were shocked. Who was it this time? Chu Yang had just broken through, so it could not be him again. But after they looked around, they finally found something that made them collapse. Chu Yang. It was Chu Yang again. GMO's mouth was wide open, and he slowly spat out 2 words. Ko. Luo Kudi and Dong Wushang were also stunned. This sudden breakthrough. Could it be that there was such a thing? It must be known that every breakthrough required a large amount of true inner force. As for the true inner force, it required a period of time to accumulate. As the dense aura became clearer, a boom seemed to resound in everyone's hearts. Everyone's jaws almost dropped to the ground at the same time as the sound of the vibrations echoed in the air. Another breakthrough. Another breakthrough, martial artist grade. On the roof, Mo Qingyu smiled bitterly. He was a king-level master. Although he had not recovered from his injuries, his perception was much more sensitive than the people below. Ever since Chu Yang had broken through to 5th grade martial artist, he had been paying attention. He discovered that Chu Yang's aura had stopped at the initial 5th grade martial artist for only a moment. Then, the aura in Chu Yang's body slowly increased until it reached 5th grade martial artist. At this time, Mo Qingyu was shocked. However, Chu Yang's aura did not stop growing, and it continued to grow. Slowly, it reached the high rank, then the peak rank, and then, it continued to break through to the low rank. Seeing Chu Yang break through like this, Mo Qingyu's heart became even more worried. Don't look. Boss is always like this. Once he breaks through, it will be continuous. Gu Duxing smiled bitterly in his heart as he called out to them. Under Gu Duxing's greeting, the group once again became spirited, and they began to torture their bodies, which were almost unable to bear the burden. After another half an hour, another wave of dense and obscure aura began to slowly fluctuate. Plop. GMO was looking. After a while, he found out that it was Chu Yang again. He finally could not help but fall to the ground. His whole body trembled, and his mouth was crooked as he said, "Up, this motherfucker, this motherfucker." Dong Wushang stared at Chu Yang tongue-tied. His heart was so calm that it could not be described. Luo Kadi was stunned. Another breakthrough, 3 consecutive breakthroughs. Moreover, his aura continued to grow, all the way until it reached the peak of level 7 before it finally stopped unwillingly. Mo Qingyu, who was on the roof, almost fell down. Breaking through several grades in a row. If one ate a heavenly elixir, as long as the elixir was controlled and the body did not explode, it could be done. However, this was the first time he had seen someone cultivate slowly and steadily step by step. Especially, when he was breaking through, he was holding a small body in his arms. Mo Qingwu. This really made people speechless. When a normal person was breaking through, even the slightest disturbance would cause them to go crazy. Even a dog's bark would affect them. This young master, on the other hand, was holding a lively little girl and broke through 3 grades in a row. Mo Qingwu was very well behaved. She didn't move an inch in Chu Yang's arms when he was breaking through. But she was still a living person. A GMO, with your talent, You can be considered a genius in your G clan. I heard that your fastest speed was to break through 1 grade in 3 days? Gu Duxing's cold face revealed an indescribable expression. For the first time, he smiled and spoke to GMO enthusiastically. Get lost. You have a little bit of kindness. It's all stolen. GMO was furious. In front of this freak who broke through 3 grades in less than 3 hours, he praised me, a person who broke through 1 grade in 2.5 days, as a genius. You, Gu Duxing, are really a genius. In the future, if anyone praises me as a genius again, I will get angry with them. GMO covered his face and lay on the ground. His legs were spasming. It was too embarrassing. In front of this Chu Yang, no matter what kind of genius one was, they could only feel ashamed of their inferiority. Brother Chu Yang, are you finally done breaking through? Seeing that Chu Yang had finally opened his eyes, Mo Qingwu curled up and asked timidly. Yes, I'm done breaking through. Chu Yang smiled gently and stroked Mo Qingwu's hair. I was afraid of disturbing you, so I didn't dare to move. Mo Qingwu pouted and said pitifully, my waist is sore, my legs are sore, my arms are sore, even my butt is sore. I'll help you rub. Chu Yang revealed a doting smile. The figure used less strength, right here and there. Mo Qingwu turned her body and pointed at Chu Yang. Suddenly, she giggled. Itchy. Finally, after rubbing her arms and legs, Mo Qingwu actually sat up and lay on Chu Yang's lap. She stuck out a finger and pointed. And the butt is good too. Chu Yang sweated profusely, gently rubbing her butt. Chu Yang's imagination suddenly ran wild. If in another 7 or 8 years, she would also lie on top of him and let him touch her. Thinking of this, Official Chu's mouth suddenly became dry. He secretly scolded himself. Beast, what are you thinking? Chu Yang, you actually have this kind of thought for a young girl. This is simply intolerable. Although he was scolding himself, it was still very shameful. Brother Chu Yang, it's done. Mo Qingwu twisted her waist uncomfortably. What did you use to press against my lower abdomen? It hurts. As he spoke, he stretched out his hand to teach her. Cough. Chu Yang hurriedly put Mo Qingwu down and stood up quickly. He laughed loudly and walked towards the training area. How's your practice? Why are you all looking at me like that? Is there something on my face? The 4 of them looked at him with grief and anger. Finally, they groaned weakly at the same time. GMO said with a long face, we've been tricked. Luo Kudi actually nodded sympathetically. We've been tricked. In a few years, if I become a legend, I hope that you will be in my legend. In a few years, if you become a legend, I hope that I will be in your legend. Chapter 159. At the same time, they remembered that Chu Yang had made a bet with them that he would break through to martial master from 4th grade martial artist within a month. At that time, they all thought that this guy was joking. Now that they thought about it, how could he still need a month? This guy broke through 3 grades in 4 hours. Now he was already 7th grade. Thinking of this, the 4 of them were a little dejected. Don't look at me like that. I'll be shy. Chu Yang laughed. He hugged his head and turned around. As he walked, he said, let's go to sleep. Breaking through feels good. Behind him, the 4 of them looked at each other. Breaking through feels good? How could they not feel good? If we broke through like this, we would have died long ago. Yes, Dong Wushang, if you can be the first to break through and stay, I'll give you the saber in your heart. Chu Yang stopped. With his back facing them, he said, however, you'll have to provide the black iron for the black saber yourself. No problem. Dong Wushang was so excited that his whole body trembled. I'll definitely be the first to break through this month. Then I'll go home and get it. Tisk. First to break through? Dong Wushang, who do you think you are? Luo Kdi GMO and Ji Butong looked at him with hostility. Yes, I have a feeling that I'm about to break through. At the side, Gu Duxing, who had been standing there coolly, suddenly said with a strange expression. The 4 of them vomited blood at the same time. You can't be. It's true. Gu Duxing nodded seriously. Looks like I'll have to go into seclusion tonight. I'm sorry, everyone. Looks like I won't be able to run away from the title of second brother. He turned around and walked away. Behind him, Jianghu screamed hoarsely, Du Xing, you can't be so inhumane. You just broke through to 7th grade martial great master. Du Xing stopped and said regretfully, I have to correct your mistake. I broke through to 7th grade martial great master half a month ago. Jianghu wanted to cry but had no tears. He sat on the ground. He was completely agitated. Originally, both of them were martial great masters and were evenly matched. Now, Du Xing was about to break through to 8th grade? How could the proud and arrogant Jianghu endure such humiliation? That night, Jianghu and the other three couldn't sleep. When Gu Duxing's room suddenly emitted the dense aura of a breakthrough, the four of them burst into tears at the same time. They had really broken through. That night, Jean Ri slept soundly. It was the third watch of the night. From the direction of the slums, more than a dozen figures rose into the air and flew towards the prison as if they were riding on clouds. The Golden Horse Riders Department had finally taken action. Before the troops left, Kong Shang-Exen sternly said, make a scene. They were going to make a scene. Whether number 1 could be saved or not, it was all up to fate. However, you must turn the prison upside down. I will be guarding Butian Pavilion. Once the news spreads, King of Hell Chu will definitely come to investigate. At that time, it will be the best time for me to kill King of Hell Chu. In Kong Shang-Exen's heart, King of Hell Chu's life and death were much more important than number 1. Number 1 Lian Jie didn't even do a good job as a spy and was even captured alive. This kind of trash actually needed someone to save him. However, using this matter to kill King of Hell Chu, number 1 could be considered to have contributed greatly. King of Hell Chu had always lived in seclusion. It was impossible for outsiders to see him or grasp his whereabouts. The only way was to lure the snake out of its hole. It was not that Kong Shang-Exen did not think of directly breaking into Butian Pavilion and killing King of Hell Chu. However, he did not know where King of Hell Chu was. How could he kill him in one strike? He was afraid that as soon as the wind blew, King of Hell Chu would run away. Plus, as long as King of Hell Chu took off his mask, no one would be able to recognize him. Beating the grass to scare the snake would not be good. Therefore, Kong Shang-Exen used this opportunity. Rescuing number 1 was fake, but luring the snake out of its hole and killing King of Hell Chu was the most important thing. Even though the Prime Minister had said not to touch King of Hell Chu as much as possible. But the Prime Minister had also said, if there is a good opportunity, there is no harm in fighting. Kong Shang-Exen was very confident. Iron Cloud's prison was heavily guarded. From the day they set up the trap until today, it had not been a long time. Calculating the time, if Great Zhao wanted to take action, then today would be the day they would arrive at Iron Cloud. From today onwards, Mao Yi would enter a state of full combat. A big battle could break out at any time. Even though they did not know who was imprisoned inside, one thing was certain. This person was an important person of Great Zhao. Otherwise, King of Hell Chu would not have gone through so much trouble. His Highness would not have cooperated so much. Thinking of this, the guards all had their hearts in their throats. Even though they were on duty, who would dare to sleep? Perhaps if they fell asleep, they would not be able to wake up the next day. Just as everyone was on high alert, something unexpected finally happened. Without a sound, on the highest sentry post, the largest lanterns suddenly went out. Then all the other lanterns went out one after another. The entire front half of the prison was suddenly plunged into absolute darkness. Enemy attack. A sharp cry rang out. It was especially mournful in the silent night. Suddenly, the guards and experts of Iron Cloud who were guarding the prison rushed out at almost the same time. They quickly guarded all the entrances, but the surroundings were quiet. There was not the slightest movement. The night was dark, the enemy was here, but no one knew where the enemy was hiding. Each of them unsheathed their swords as if they were facing a great enemy. In the Shadow City, the 3 command horse riders looked at each other. For this operation, the 3 of them each led a team. Kong Shang-xen was hiding in the shadows and did not participate. Looking at their defense, the left door should be the most heavily guarded. One of the command horse riders said, according to the map of the prison, there should be many cells inside. This is going to be troublesome. The three of them nodded at the same time. The commotion just now was caused by them. Humans, only when they are caught off guard would they unconsciously show what they care about the most through their actions. And now, the three command horse riders were using this to their advantage. First, they beat the grass to scare the snake. Then, they used the enemy's reaction to determine where number one was imprisoned. Finally, they gathered their strength and attacked the enemy's weak point to achieve their goal. This was a method that only experienced Jianghu people would use. Follow the original plan, let's move out. One of the command horse riders quickly ordered. In the quiet night, 3 horses suddenly galloped from the main road straight toward the prison. The sound of hooves was like rain, shattering the night. Who is it? At the entrance of the prison, there was a loud shout. On top of the walls, a large group of archers stood up. On their bowstrings, there were rows upon rows of shining arrows, emitting a faint light in the night. Who is on duty tonight? Come out and answer. The 3 horses stopped. The 2 people behind them were wearing the uniforms of the Imperial Guards, but the one in front was wearing casual clothes. At this moment, he was sitting high on the horse. His eagle eyes were coldly looking at the prison gate. In the shadow of the gate, a person said in a low voice, "Thunder is about to rise?" Eternal iron cloud. The person did not hesitate to answer the code and asked, "Is it Commander Li or Commander Zhou?" "It is Li." "Which one of the Imperial Guards are you? You look unfamiliar." Inside the gate, a person suspiciously asked, "You don't need to know who I am. According to the orders of the Imperial Guard, there will be an operation in Great Zhao tonight. The enemy is very strong. The Imperial Guard is afraid that the prison will be lost, so he specially sent me to assist in the defense." The person coldly sat on the horse and said, "Open the gate. The prison is an important place. Ordinary people are not allowed to enter. Even if you can answer the code, it will be the same." Commander Li coldly said, "If you want to enter the prison, do you have the Imperial Guard's order or the minister's seal?" "I don't have the minister's seal, but I have the Imperial Guard's order." The person on the horse sneered. He took out a letter from his bosom and held it in his hand. "Throw it over." Commander Li did not relax his vigilance. The person on the horse's eyes flashed coldly and said, "Catch." He grabbed the corner of the letter and threw it out. The thin letter fiercely spun, making a sharp whistling sound in the air. It flew over 50 feet and landed in front of the gate. The iron gate still did not open. With a schwa sound, an iron claw connected to an iron chain hung down from the top of the wall. It hung down to the ground and suddenly closed. It caught the letter and then slowly rose up. When the iron chain was halfway up, a silver light suddenly flashed. With a bang sound, the iron chain broke into 2 pieces. Then, 7 or 8 shadows flashed from all directions. In a flash, 5 people had already rushed to the top of the wall. The sound of crossbows and arrows echoed. The entire sky above the prison gate turned into an iron curtain made of crossbows and arrows. The sharpness of Ironcloud's armors was unparalleled in the world. This sentence could be seen from the reactions of the soldiers guarding the prison. Caught off guard, hundreds of people drew their bows and released arrows at the same time. There was no panic. However, the 5 people had already rushed up. They started a massacre. On the other hand, the few people on the boat leaped down and flashed towards the 3 people on horseback like a wisp of smoke. The 3 people were not willing to be outdone. They rushed down from their horses and faced the 5 people head-on. In a moment, there was a big fight inside and outside. The sharp sound of the bugle horn rang out. All of Ironcloud Citadel's prison was in an uproar. Countless soldiers gathered from all directions. The nearby barracks also sounded the bugle horn at the same time. A moment later, the sound of hooves thundered from 3 different directions, getting closer and closer. It was only when the 5 of them rushed up to the roof that they realized that a huge net had suddenly risen up from the ground. Steel blades were flashing brightly on the net, covering the entire ground. The prison on the left of Ironcloud Citadel could only be entered from this courtyard. Then, there was a fork in the road. It was almost like an underground fortification. With this large net covering them, the 5 people in black did not seem to have any way to get in. Instead, they tried their best to avoid standing on the edge of the wall. They were afraid of being pushed down, so their hands and feet were tied. Archers on the walls from all directions appeared at the same time. They drew their bows and aimed. If there was a mistake, a deadly arrow would fly out like lightning. The situation was extremely unfavorable for these masked men in black. If things continued like this, not only would they not be able to break into the prison, they might even be trapped here. Chapter 160. However, Ironclad's side was at a disadvantage in the battle outside. 3 experts against 5, and their strength was far inferior. They were at a disadvantage almost immediately. With a bang, one of the Ironclad guards was struck in the chest. He spat out a mouthful of blood and rolled away like a rubber ball. One of the masked men in black chased after him with a sinister smile and kicked him. However, he did not kill him but was just playing with him. He screamed and cursed loudly, but he was kicked around like a rubber ball without any strength to fight back. When the people inside saw that the situation was stabilized, they heaved a sigh of relief. However, they were once again enraged by the cruel scene in front of them. The man in civilian clothes tried his best to resist the enemy's attacks as he screamed, "Commander Lee, you must not open the door. They are deliberately provoking you. As long as you open the door, you will give them a chance. Us brothers are not worthy of your pity, but this prison is an important place. You must not lose it." His voice was fierce and powerful. Coupled with the blood that was spurting out of his mouth and body, it made him look even more heroic. Inside the door, several soldiers were filled with anger as they watched the cruel fight outside. Their eyes were filled with tears. One of the burly men suddenly turned his head and punched the wall fiercely. He said in a muffled voice, "Good man." At this moment, the sound of hoofbeats came from 3 directions at the same time. Ironclad's army had finally arrived at this moment. "Tight wind! Retreat!" With a sharp cry, the 5 black-clothed men on top of the wall flew up at the same time. Arrows rained down on the 5 people. Another person appeared from the shadows. His body was covered in a brilliant sword light. He spun in the air and cut all the arrows. He shouted, "You guys leave quickly. I will cover you." The 5 men did not even look back. They jumped up and down a few times before their figures disappeared. The 5 people outside had already leaped up. One of them actually punched the puppet viciously before leaving, before kicking the body of the guard who was lying on the ground. The guard's body was sent flying high into the air before landing heavily on the ground. Fresh meat was being cooked. Then, these black-clothed men let out a long howl and left the scene like lightning. The Junes surrounded him. On the ground, there were only 3 bodies that looked like broken sacks. Quickly bring them in and see if they can be saved." Commander Lee's eyes were filled with tears as he shouted with all his might. A few soldiers quickly put down the bags and carried the 3 men carefully. They were already unconscious, but their blood was still dripping from their wounds. Finally, they reached the door. The metal door opened to allow 2 people to walk through side by side. The soldiers carrying the stretchers greeted them and walked in. Right at this moment, an unforeseen event occurred. The 3 people on the stretchers suddenly jumped up, and their hands were as fast as lightning. At the same time, their throats were cut, and they collapsed. One of them slammed his palm on the already open iron door. Bang! A loud explosion rang out, and the sound was so loud that it caused the nearby soldiers to bleed and their eyes to blur. The 3 of them had already rushed through the iron gate. Whenever he sees someone, he will shoot like a mad tiger. "Quick! Let go of the iron gate." Commander Lee was filled with regret and hatred as he shouted. He did not expect the enemy to be so cunning to use such a trick to gain his confidence. Too late. The brocade-robed man laughed out loud. He had already rushed out of the gate and into the courtyard. His right hand reached for his waist, and a strange-looking dagger appeared. He then leaped up, and with a ripping sound, he tore a huge hole in the iron gate. Following that, the other two men each pulled one side of the iron gate with all their might. The iron gate let out a deafening sound as it split open. The Dao swords on the net then shot out, enveloping a large number of soldiers who were rushing over. A shrill cry rang out once more, and 15 figures descended from the sky like celestial beings, jumping into the courtyard through the hole in the iron gate. So, they had not left and they were just playing hard to get. Furthermore, they had not mobilized their full strength earlier. Commander Li's eyes widened in anger as he charged forward. However, he was kicked in the chest by one of the men in black, and he was sent flying with his dagger. After flying for a few feet, his burly body suddenly split into pieces in midair. Lao-san, you lead your men here to block the entrance. Lao-er and I will go in to take a look. One of the masked men in black robes shouted. All right. One of the shorter masked men in black robes laughed out loud, blocking the entrance to the inner gates. The other masked men in black, each holding a dagger, separated from him in a winged formation. This was the narrowest place, and there was a bend. If there were arrows, they could easily dodge them. The iron-clad guards charged forward crazily. As for the other 12 people, they split into two groups and rushed in. The leader of the group was the most ruthless. In a short time, he had already captured 4 to 5 guards. Each of them only asked one question: where are the most recent criminals being held? He asked a question, and if there is no reply, he will pinch the neck and grab the next one. It's in the mouth, turn left. It's an individual cell. Spare me. When he caught the 17th person, the last person trembled as he screamed. Very good. The masked man in black robes chopped off his head and said indifferently, in order to repay you, I'll give you a quick death. After saying that, he charged forward like a whirlwind. At the same time, he shouted, It's here! The people on the other side turned around with a swoosh. The 12 of them were like a sharp awl, piercing deep into the ground. The obstacles along the way were obviously a lot bigger. Moreover, the guards were obviously a few levels better than other places. Although the 12 of them were having a hard time, they were getting happier. It seemed like this was the place. Careful! Just as they were advancing at full speed, the person at the very front suddenly let out a strange cry and leaped back like lightning. It turned out that a large hole had suddenly appeared on the ground in front of him. It was at least 20 feet wide. If he charged forward, he would be able to charge through, but his comrades behind him would definitely fall in. That was why he did not charge forward, but instead, he retreated and used his body to block his comrades. The teamwork of the Golden Horse Riders department members was very good. Just as he was about to land on the ground, the walls on both sides suddenly split open, and 7 to 8 viscous black liquid poured out. Kerosene. Motherfucker. The leader of the command horse riders cursed, Everyone, quickly jump over. The 12 of them got up at the same time, and countless torches were thrown at them. With a loud bang, the flames behind them burned fiercely. The heat of the flames seemed to be roasting their backs. In front of them, overturned planks and holes kept appearing. Countless amounts of kerosene emerged from any possible place, forming a thick layer on the ground. The 12 of them could only try their best to jump forward, not daring to stop. Because their bodies were already covered in kerosene, if they were even a little bit slower, they would be burned. The command horse rider at the front used his palm to catch the kerosene that was falling from above, and charged forward without a care for anything else. Suddenly, the legs of the 3 people at the front went soft and they fell down. This seemingly flat ground was actually a trap. The 3 of them were shocked. Under the illumination of the flames, they could clearly see a few footprints. How could there be a trap here? But the 3 of them did not have time to think, and they had already fallen. They had been leaping all the way. Although they were martial revered level cultivators, they had already exhausted their last breath. It was the awkward moment where they had used up all their strength and had yet to recover their strength. They did not have time to leap up before they fell down. With a loud bang, The entire passageway was filled with yellow smoke. Inside the trap, there was a short scream. Motherfucker, there are so many Dick. I'm Dick. Loose, step on me. Hurry up and go. It was obvious that one of them was injured, and he was in a lot of trouble. It was just a sentence, but he was already gasping for breath. Yellow smoke filled the air, and two figures flashed. Two masked men in black rushed forward with tears in their eyes. That comrade of his had already fallen silent. What a good Dick. They had not even reached the first cell, and they had already lost a person. There's Dick in the smoke. There's bewitching soul Yao and spring temptress Yao. A black-clothed masked man screamed in horror. Despicable. King of Hell Chu, you're despicable. The remaining 11 masked men in black cursed at the same time. But if the penis is not injured, it is fine if the penis cannot enter the uterus. With everyone's skills, they can stop the penis from entering the uterus. They could have even fought and pulled the dick out at the same time. But the lust dick was not possible. In a split second, the 11 masked men in black tight-fitting clothes had already set up tall tents under their waists. Their faces were flushed red, and their eyes were filled with excitement. Lust dick? Everyone should have realized that the most lust dick in this world is not dick, but lust dick. This thing is too difficult to deal with. Now that we have lust dick, how are we going to deal with it? Our pants are as hard as iron, where are we going to release it? Our arteries are expanding. Just a little more, and we will be able to save the first cell. The leader of the BMW horsemen tried his best to suppress the urge in his heart and the excitement in his body. He pushed forward with his bulging lower body, but his eyes couldn't help but look around the prison cells. Holy shit, why aren't there any female prisoners? The smoke was getting thicker and thicker. In just a short 100 feet, there was still space on both sides and the ground, but they had already encountered more than 10 traps. Every single one of them was unimaginable, and every single one of them was lust dick to the extreme. The two command horse riders could not help but curse at the dense number of traps. The people who had set up these traps were all masters of scoundrels, wretched experts. You despicable bastard who deserves to be chopped into pieces. How could there be such a trap? It was simply a combination of all the thoughts and ideas, plus 100,000 points of wretchedness and grumpiness. Chapter 161. Normally, these vicious traps would have killed at least 2 of them, and the others would have been injured. But now, they had not lost a single person. It had to be said that after taking the aphrodisiac, even though Li Fun was in a difficult situation, his body's reaction speed had increased by a lot. Especially since they had not yet reached the stage where their lower body was about to split open. This aphrodisiac had actually increased their battle prowess. Normally, they would not have been able to pass through the traps, but today, they had passed through them without any mishap. As if they had taken an aphrodisiac, they had the energy of a dragon and the ferocity of a tiger. Indeed, they had the energy of a dragon and the ferocity of a tiger. Even though they had not taken the aphrodisiac, they had absorbed it. This flaw was something that King of Hell Chu, who had insisted on using the aphrodisiac, would never have thought of. However, if King of Hell Chu were here, he would have opened his eyes wide and sighed, "Motherfucker, this world is truly amazing. 11 men holding their spears and fighting bravely. This is truly a spectacle. This time, their entire bodies are fighting." The reality was just as he had said. 11 experts were holding their spears and riding their horses. In this dangerous trap, their faces were flushed red, and their spirits were high to the extreme. Their hair was standing straight up in excitement. Each one of them was yelling as they went straight for the prison where Tang Xinxing was being held. Bang! Bang! With a loud sound, the leader of the command horse riders fiercely slammed his palm against an iron plate filled with poison. Finally, they arrived in front of the innermost prison cell. There was a person inside. He was curled up on the ground, trying his best to raise his head and look at them. The two command horse riders were overjoyed. This person's face was the face of Tang Xinxing that Diwu Qingro had personally drawn. Number 1. The Prime Minister has sent us to save you. Tang Xinsheng seemed to be very excited. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. His body tried to move, but he could not get up. It seemed that the injuries on his body were so severe that he could not move at all. Sure enough, number 1 was tortured. The command horse rider made a prompt decision. His long sword flashed and fiercely chopped down on the big iron chain. With a dang sound, the iron chain broke. He kicked Tang Xinsheng aside and dashed inside. Without hesitation, his long sword flashed again and again. Tang Xinsheng's shackles fell to the ground. He squatted down and threw Tang Xinsheng on his back with his other hand. Then he shouted, "Success! Charge out!" From where the smoke rose, 11 figures rushed out excitedly. Everyone's heart wasn't filled with joy or sorrow for saving number 1. Instead, it was filled with an urgent desire to get out of this place as soon as possible. Where is the nearest kiln to Iron Cloud Citadel? His lower body was about to explode. He couldn't take it anymore. Human figures flickered. Those experts from the Heaven Mending Pavilion and the borrowed experts from the Imperial Palace finally rushed out from their hiding places and began to fight. As soon as they came out, they burst into laughter. Everyone was wearing tight-fitting night clothes. Their undergarments were too obvious, as if they were about to tear apart. "Hey, Boss Wang, look at these people. Are they here to show off? Their undergarments are so swollen." While fighting, someone's mouth was not idle. He kept on mocking, "Motherfucker, such a big lump, half a pound? They have already taken the antidote and are not afraid of this." Yes, it looks like they are having a hard time." Another voice said, "Why are they so uncomfortable?" "Nonsense, the minister prepared 20 pounds of aphrodisiac. They basically didn't waste it. If it were you, wouldn't you feel uncomfortable? There isn't even a sow here. It must be hard for them." "Fuck, I've seen it for myself. Aphrodisiac can be used by pounds." Even though everyone's martial arts were not as good as those masked men in black, and almost everyone was injured, it did not stop them from viciously mocking them. Actually, they could have taken care of it while rushing out. There is no need to feel so uncomfortable. A person coughed. He was hit with a palm. Blood flowed out of the corner of his mouth. However, his opponents slowed down their pace of attack because of this sentence. Take care of it while rushing out? How to take care of it? How to take care of it? This is an aphrodisiac. Another rough voice shouted, "There is nothing that guy can't take care of. Isn't that simple?" While fighting, this guy did not stop talking. They just need to take off their pants. They don't even need to take off their pants. They just need to use their energy to make a hole. Then, the one in front will have to suffer a little. But, the one behind him will not have to feel so uncomfortable. Why can the one behind him do it? Think about it. As long as the one in front raises his butt, the one behind him will have a place to take care of it. Then one after the other. Anyway, their internal energy is very strong. They just need to shout 1, 2, 3, and then they will fly out together. Moreover, they can still use their hands to fight with us. After fighting for a while, they will attack us. This guy's mouth was not ordinary. While he was being beaten until he was coughing up blood, he laughed until he could not breathe. This is not a long way. They just need to endure a few hits and then they will be out. This cough cough cough. A strong martial artist can actually do a lot of things. Wang Irma, let me tell you, this is what it means to work together. This is what it means to have a strong will. Suddenly he laughed crazily. Not bad, not bad. Ha. One after another, they will all be out. Ha. Maybe in the future, they will not be able to leave each other. There is no need for us to come out and fight with them now. In fact, we just need to wait until they are all out and then rush out. Then we will have an advantage. At that time, they will all be in love with each other. Ouch, I am injured again. Fuck, this guy is big now, right? This guy's words completely aroused the anger of the masters of Golden Horse Riders Department. One by one, they came to greet him. Not long after, he was injured several times. Seeing that his life was in danger, he unexpectedly showed a strange smile before he died. Brothers, my suggestion is absolutely good. You guys take off your pants and try. Bao Hong, try your ancestor. His voice hadn't even faded when an extremely angry expert of the Golden Horse Riders department stabbed him in the chest with his sword. He laughed out loud twice before he died. Chu Yang had many masters lying in ambush here. But their quality couldn't be compared to the Golden Horse Riders departments. These 11 people had paid the price of half of them getting injured. But they still managed to rush to the door like crazy tigers. Soon, they would meet up with the people outside. And at this time, the aphrodisiac's effect had reached its peak. Their eyes were bloodshot, and their mouths were moaning and groaning. But there was no way to describe the current situation. There was no way to describe it. The revered grade martial artist Command Horse Rider was guarding outside. He had brought along a few of his subordinates. They were facing wave after wave of attacks from the large army outside. They were almost unable to withstand it. When they saw their companions come out, they couldn't help but be overjoyed. They shouted, "Quick! Everyone quickly rush out. I can't hold on much longer." Suddenly his tone changed. He was extremely stunned. "Fuck, what's wrong with you guys? Why are you all like this? Fuck his grandmother. It's full of aphrodisiacs." The revered grade martial artist Command Horse Rider, who was carrying Tang Xen Sheng, was indescribably angry. His face twisted as he roared, "We have already confessed, Pif." The Command Horse Rider who was guarding the door almost vomited blood. He was tongue-tied as he said, Looking at the faces of his companions, he knew that this matter could not be delayed any longer. Looking at these people, who were looking at his butt, the Command Horse Rider's heart couldn't help but tremble. How many aphrodisiacs did that damned king of hell Chu use? Rush out, kill. There was no time to lose. The 3 Command Horse Riders issued the order at the same time. At this time, the Command Horse Rider carrying Tang Xen Sheng suddenly felt something strange on his back. He couldn't help but turn around to look. He saw Tang Xen Sheng, who was carrying him, had a strange smile on his face. Then he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his lower body. Ah! The 2 Command Horse Riders let out inhuman screams at the same time. This guy actually grabbed the crotch of the 2 Command Horse Riders and used all his strength to twist it. This was really sudden. The 2 Command Horse Riders were not prepared. They did not think that this dying number 1 would suddenly make a move. Moreover, the speed of his move was not any slower than them, who were revered level martial artists. Moreover, they would never have imagined that he would attack that place. That place was the weakest part of the body. Although it was at its toughest, it could not defend against an all-out attack from an expert. Suddenly, the long spear was twisted into the shape of a fried dough twist. If someone had traveled back in time and saw this scene, they would definitely exclaim in surprise, "Wow, brother, you have a threaded steel here." Ugh. Unfortunately, there was no such thing in this world. The faces of the 2 Command Horse Riders twisted into an expression that normal people would not be able to make. Their eyes bulged and their bodies curled up like cooked prawns. Bang, bang, bang. Number 1 slapped the heads of the 2 Command Horse Riders. The 2 Command Horse Riders did not make a sound. They fell down like logs with blood flowing out of their 7 orifices. Then, number 1 suddenly jumped up. His movements were like lightning as he punched and kicked. Every move he made was aimed at the lower body. Moreover, the targets of his sneak attack were the experts of the Golden Horse Riders department who were suffering the most. Caught off guard, 7 of them were hit on the spot. The bulging part of their crotch was ruthlessly beaten. Immediately, they covered their crotches in pain as they screamed and curled up. It's a trap. This person is not number 1. This is the biggest trap. The Command Horse Rider who was guarding outside finally reacted. He could not help but shout, "Bastard! I will kill you!" Chapter 162. The disguised revered martial artist from the Hei Mo clan laughed heartily. He was originally against this mission, but he never thought that he would be able to sneak attack 2 revered martial artists who were 1 level higher than him, and even severely injure 7 revered martial artists. This kind of battle record was something he would not even dare to think about. Seeing the remaining revered martial artist pouncing on him, the Hei-Mo revered martial artist was not afraid at all. At this moment, his legs were tightly held by 2 revered martial artists who were now his nephews. At the same time, the 2 opened their mouths and bit on his thighs. For eyes emitted a crazy light at the same time. At the same time, each of them had a free hand, and they ruthlessly struck at his crotch area, puff puff. Although his sneak attack was successful, it was still 1 against 2. His strength was inevitably scattered. In addition, the 2 revered martial artists from the Golden Horse Riders department were 1 level higher than him. Normally, they would have fainted. However, they had taken an aphrodisiac and did not explode. This was the time when they were most excited. His 2 palms actually didn't knock them out. It was finally his turn to taste what his enemies had tasted. The Hei-Mo revered martial artist looked up at the sky and let out a scream that did not sound like a human voice. At the same time, both of his hands struck downwards, again and again, like raindrops falling down. Third brother. We are finished. A command horse rider from the Golden Horse Riders department was crazily attacking the Hei-Mo revered martial artist. His mind was slowly becoming blurry, but he still cried out, "Hurry up and leave. Third brother, you are. Big brother. Second brother." Third brother suddenly burst into tears. Outside, the battle cries were getting closer. Another attack had begun. The revered martial artist from the Golden Horse Riders department suddenly roared and grabbed a spear. He abandoned his 2 brothers who were on the verge of death and rushed out like a mad tiger. "Break out with me." Inside, the experts in the prison also rushed out. The 7 heavily injured revered martial artists made the same choice at the same time. They charged forward without any regard for their lives and used their own lives to block these people. Their lower bodies had been severely injured by an 8th-rank martial venerable when they were at their most excited state. There was no hope left. Even if he managed to escape as a man, he was already done for. Therefore, they chose not to leave. The remaining members of the Golden Horse Riders department cried out with tears in their eyes. They rushed out at the same time. 10 of them had come here, but only 2 of them had rushed out. Even the 2 command horse riders had been left behind. This kind of battle record, this kind of crushing defeat before today, no one could have imagined. At the entrance of the prison, the 2 command horse riders fought with their lives on the line and finally managed to stall the Black Devil expert. In the end, the 2 legs of the Black Devil expert were bitten off by the 2 of them. The 3 of them were roaring furiously and screaming miserably. Flesh and blood flew everywhere, splashing out like rain. The scene was so tragic that everyone who saw it felt a chill run down their spines. In the end, they collapsed at the same time and stopped breathing. The other 7 martial revered realm experts also fought for a period of time before they were dismembered and killed. They were already arrows at the end of their flight and were severely injured. Their fighting strength was not even 20 to 30% of their normal strength. They were already satisfied that they were able to stall the enemy. Looking at the blood and flesh on the ground, everyone was speechless. If it were not for the trap, perhaps the fake 8th-rank revered martial artist would have only managed to sneak attack 1 or 2 of them. Then, the rest of them would have safely retreated. The people of Golden Horse Riders Department were not only skilled in martial arts, but they were also not afraid of death. After today's battle, everyone finally knew the true power of Golden Horse Riders Department. They had more than 10 times the enemy's manpower. If the soldiers outside were added, that would be hundreds of times the enemy's manpower. Yet only 10 people were left. The experts of Iron Prison also chased after them like locusts. The enemy came to cause a ruckus and left just like that. No one could bring themselves to do so. Immediately after, the entire Ironcloud Citadel was filled with alarms. Scouts were sent out everywhere. The sound of horse hooves was chaotic. The quiet night was like a boiling pot. There was a huge flaw in Chu Yang's plan. Otherwise, none of the experts of Golden Horse Riders Department would have been able to escape. In fact, this could not be considered a flaw in Chu Yang's plan. At that time, Chu Yang and the Heimo Saber King had agreed to let the Heimo people assist in the defense. The Saber King agreed without hesitation. However, the Saber King still underestimated the arrogance of the revered martial artists of his clan. Listening to an official of a secular country to guard his prison? Who does he think he is? Plus, if he did that, wouldn't he become the legendary lackey? Therefore, even though they agreed under the orders of the king-level leader, they still delayed for 2 days. However, in these 2 days, such a big thing happened. Not only did they not manage to capture all of the enemies, but one of their 8th grade revered martial artists died inside. After king-level leader Kong Shang Xian's subordinates left, he went to the top of heaven-reaching tower, the tallest building in Iron Cloud Citadel. He silently looked down at the night sky of Iron Cloud Citadel. With 3 revered martial artists leading a group of more than a dozen revered martial artists and a few high-level martial great masters, they might not be invincible in this world. Being blocked was a common occurrence. However, king-level leader Kong was absolutely certain that such a force would not appear in Iron Cloud Citadel. Even if it did appear in Iron Cloud Citadel, it would not be the power of the government. Therefore, king-level leader Kong was not worried. Right now, he was sitting at heaven-reaching tower, quietly waiting for the victory song. When the citadel was in chaos, king-level leader Kong's mouth revealed a meaningful smile. His eyes were like a hawk's as he looked at the mobilization of Iron Cloud Citadel's troops with disdain and arrogance. Such an ant-like battle team actually wants to keep my people? Ridiculous. If it was a direct battle on the battlefield, my people would definitely be crushed into powder. There was no chance of survival. However, this was a citadel. No matter if it was trees, houses, or even a wall, it would become a stage for masters to move around. In such a complex terrain, ordinary soldiers would not be able to stop masters. Therefore, the more chaotic the better. It would be best to make the situation so tense that Tai Bu Tian would appear. King of Hell Chu would also appear. At that time, whether to assassinate Tai Bu Tian or King of Hell Chu, it would depend on my mood. Naturally, it wasn't easy to assassinate Tai Bu Tian. His 2 personal experts were really extremely mysterious and also extremely powerful. However, King of Hell Chu did not have such masters by his side. With my skills, after killing King of Hell Chu in 1 blow, I would immediately flee far away. In lower 3 heavens, no one would be able to catch up to me. Not long after, the citadel suddenly became noisy. Troops from all directions were mobilized. Everywhere was brightly lit. Moreover, many places were filled with people. All the inns were thoroughly searched. Even the houses were no exception. It seemed that they had successfully retreated. Kong Shang Xian revealed a proud smile. His thin body flashed from the top of heaven-reaching tower and disappeared without a trace. King-level Master Kong returned to the place where he had settled down. But he was left dumbstruck by what he saw. So, he roared in a low voice, "What's going on? Are you still martial artists? Bastards!" He saw that in addition to his subordinates standing outside the door, there were also moaning sounds coming from inside. When he opened the door, he saw a floor full of naked bodies. In addition to his subordinates, there were also a few young women with heavy makeup. We robbed a brothel and found these women, and they are of the lowest level. The command horse rider outside the door had a sad face. He whispered and sighed, "These days, all the brothels in Iron Cloud Citadel have closed. And these are the lowest level brothels in the poor areas." He understood why king-level leader Kong Shang Xian was so angry. In Chongtian continent, robbery was not a serious crime, but prostitution was forbidden. Once someone committed this crime, they would be despised by the whole world. This was the bottom line of morality in Chongtian continent. Brothel? The lowest level brothel? Kong Shang Xian suddenly felt dizzy. He slapped the command horse rider's face. "You took them to prostitution? And you brought them back?" They fell into King of Hell Chu's trap. The trap was filled with aphrodisiacs. The command horse rider explained in a low voice. He seemed to be numb to the slap as if it did not hurt him at all. Even the brothel closed because of King of Hell Chu, aphrodisiacs? Kong Shangxin gritted his teeth. Bastard, bastard. Despicable, shameless, filthy King of Hell Chu. He no longer looked at this unsightly scene and angrily closed the door. When he came out, he was startled. Where are the others? Dead. The command horse rider stood there stupidly. Tears flowed down his face. Dead? They are all dead. What? Kong Shangxin turned pale with fright. He suddenly felt as if the sky and earth were spinning. He almost could not stand straight. He quickly grabbed the command horse rider. What happened? There was no number one inside. It was purely a trap. There was danger everywhere. There was poison everywhere. There was also an 8th-grade revered martial artist pretending to be number one. The command horse rider was in a daze. My eldest brother, my second brother, they fell into a trap and were drugged with aphrodisiacs. Finally, when they were carrying the disguised number one to escape, the enemy suddenly attacked. He suddenly squatted on the ground and covered his face with his hands. There were also 8 brothers who died there. Tears flowed down from the gaps between his fingers. How could this be? How could this be? Kong Shangxin stood there in a daze. At this moment, his tall and straight back was somewhat bent. He could only mutter, how could this be, King-level leader? King-level leader, you must avenge our brothers. Next to him, a burly man cried out with tears in his eyes. His body was also bleeding, but he refused to bandage it. He just let the blood flow. King Stage, avenge our brothers. The remaining few people suddenly knelt on the ground. King of Hell Chu! King of Hell Chu! Kong Shangxin tightly clenched his fists and gritted his teeth. He roared in a low voice, if I don't kill you, I swear I am not human. If I don't kill you, the heavens will not tolerate it. 4th update. Requesting monthly votes. Chapter 163. I recommend a new book, Immortal God King, by Li Tian. The writing and plot of this book are very good. I'm reading it right now. You all can go take a look. At this time, the voices inside gradually disappeared. It was as if there was a dead silence. Then, the 3 people came out with their clothes on. They woodenly walked in front of Kong Shangxin and knelt down. Their foreheads touched the ground and did not lift up again. Kong Shangxin looked at them for a long time. Then, he suddenly stomped his feet and sighed deeply. He said in a low voice, get up. XNXN is not a big deal. They are prostitutes. It is hard to avoid. The 3 people knelt on the ground, but their bodies were trembling. 3 martial arts masters. If this was a normal time, what kind of beauty could they not find? But now, they had to rely on prostitutes to vent their desires. Moreover, they were prostitutes of the lowest level. For them, this was undoubtedly a great humiliation. King-level leader. The 3 people cried bitterly. Don't cry. Kong Shang's mind flashed with a ferocious look. Wait until we catch King of Hell Chu. I will put him in a brothel for a price. As long as someone patronizes him, I will reward that person 100 silver taels. Play him to death. The 3 people on the ground raised their heads. Their eyes shined brightly. Only by doing this to King of Hell Chu would they be able to vent their anger. Kill those 3 women. Kong Shang's mind flashed with a ferocious light. From now on, no one will know about this. When Iron Cloud Citadel was in chaos, Chu Yang had already woken up. After all, the commotion was too big. He knew that people from Golden Horse Rider's department had come to break him out of prison. But he did not go out immediately. Instead, he lay on the bed for a while. He closed his eyes and carefully thought about his plan. Then he murmured, 2 countries at war, what is good and evil? Is there? Is there not? After thinking for a long time, he finally sighed heavily. There is a problem with your mentality. The sword spirit said in his mind, an enemy is an enemy. There are no heroes among your enemies. There are only people who want your life. You can do anything to your enemies. There is only one goal, and that is to kill them. If you still cling to such a moral concept and admire or feel guilty towards your enemy, then your path will be much more difficult than it is now. It's even impossible to reach the finish line. Chu Yang was silent for a long time. Then he said in a low voice, I'm only a martial artist after all. I'm not a politician, nor am I an ambitious and ruthless person. If I'm really as unscrupulous as Diwu Qing Ro Tan, then would I still be Chu Yang? The sword spirit sighed and no longer spoke. What the sword soul said was right. An enemy was an enemy. No matter how you deal with it, as long as you can turn the enemy into a dead person, then even if you use 1,000 methods, there is nothing wrong with it. But in Chu Yang's heart, there was still the persistence of a Jianghu person. Just now, when he thought about how vicious the trap he had set up was, he felt rather uncomfortable. Although he would still do the same if he could do it all over again, he still had some sentiments in his heart. Chu Yang had always believed in being open and aboveboard. In his previous life, whether it was seeking revenge or learning from each other, it was all open and aboveboard confrontation. But in this life, the situation was too bad. The responsibility was too heavy. Moreover, if he had to confront a peerless and ruthless person like Diwu Qing Ro, Chu Yang would be consigned to eternal damnation if he took one wrong step. So, he could only try his best to dig out his wisdom. No matter what, he would consider things from an angle that was absolutely beneficial to his side and absolutely not beneficial to the other side. Chu Yang was a little worried. If his character continued to dig out the dark side of his heart and think of some despicable and shameless schemes, would he lose his true nature? Would he become a person like Diwu Qing Ro? After thinking for a while, he got up from the bed. He thought, as long as I have a thought, even if I walk out of the sea of blood, so what? I'm still me. Thinking like this, he suddenly felt refreshed. Walking out to take a look, he saw that GMO and the others had also been awakened. They also looked a little depressed. No matter who it was, if they were to be woken up by such a commotion in the middle of the night, no one would feel comfortable. Gu Duxing yawned at the door and said, Since you're awake, why aren't you cultivating? Why are all of you standing there like stupid birds? The four of them immediately glared at him with anger. Hey, I'll continue to sleep. Gu Duxing staggered and closed the door. His muttering came out from the crack of the door. Anyway, I've broken through. Hey, it's so comfortable to go back to sleep. Then, they heard the sound of the bedboard creaking. Obviously, he was lying down. Too exciting. GMO and the others were so angry that their faces turned green. Even if he had broken through, he didn't need to be so arrogant, right? Let's cultivate. Ji Butong said weakly, a day and a half has already passed in a month. My bottleneck still hasn't loosened a bit. GMO and Dong Wushang's faces suddenly turned cold. Thinking of the serious consequences of being eliminated, everyone became nervous. They sat down cross-legged and circulated their energy. Wu Shang, I remember that the #1 warrior of Great Xiao is called Dong Wufa. Is he also a member of the Dong clan? Chu Yang grabbed a towel and wiped his face. No. Dong Wushang said casually, there are many people with the surname Dong on the continent. If they were all members of the Dong clan, then the Dong clan would have already killed their way to upper 3 heavens. In upper 3 heavens and upper 3 heavens, is there anyone with the surname Chu who is more powerful? Chu Yang seemed to ask casually, but his eyes revealed a secret light. Surname Chu? Dong Wushang thought for a while and said, I haven't heard of them. Even if there is, I'm afraid they are not powerful. As for upper 3 heavens, I'm not sure. Not sure. Not powerful. Chu Yang grinned and walked out. Coincidentally, Diwu Qingru had also asked Gao Sheng the same question before Chu Yang asked Dong Wushang this question. Gao Sheng, in these upper 3 heavens, are there any clans with the surname Chu? Absolutely not. Gao Sheng's answer was very decisive. Oh. Diwu Qingru sighed lightly. Gao Sheng seemed to feel that Diwu Qingru's heart seemed to have put down a burden. Chu Yang was extremely cautious this time. Something like Yin Wu Fa catching him, even if it happened once, was already too many. Chu Yang didn't want his tongue to be scratched again for no reason. After half a circle, he entered Butian Pavilion through a hidden tunnel. Butian Pavilion was already brightly lit. Tai Butian was already waiting for him here. Minister Chu, Golden Horse Riders Department is already on the move. I already know. Your Highness, you have been too tired recently. You don't need to worry about this kind of thing. Chu Yang said casually. I just want to know what kind of effect Minister Chu's arrangements have had. Tai Butian smiled faintly. It could be said that he was both mentally and physically exhausted during this time. Regarding his father's illness in the imperial palace, it was like a mountain pressing down on his heart. On the border, Tai Longcheng was overseeing the army. Although there were no major issues, the troops on the border were also fighting. Although they were only small disturbances, these small disturbances were the most annoying. Because in today's grim situation, every small battle could erupt into a full-scale war. The imperial court was a mess. Although King of Helchu had only dealt with a small number of traitors, he had completely caused panic among the court officials. Every day, there were many memorials to impeach King of Helchu. They were placed on the table like snowflakes. Tai Butian often sighed. There are so few people in Iron Cloud who understand. I also want to know. Chu Yang smiled confidently. Golden Horse Riders Department sent out a total of 10 people this time. Wu Qianqian held the battle report and said with a smile, but under our ambush, they left behind 10 corpses. It could be said that it was a complete victory. 10 corpses? Chu Yang was stunned. What about the rest? He thought to himself, this should not have happened. Logically speaking, they should have all been left behind. They ran away. Ran away. Chu Yang almost jumped up. Why did you let them run away? This, Tai Butian and Wu Qianqian were somewhat puzzled. If they could not hold them back, why did they run away? Why are you so surprised? What's more, we killed 10 of the 10 experts. This was a great victory for us. Why did they run away? Chu Yang coldly snorted and suddenly said, didn't the Haymo people go to guard the prison? He thought for a moment and thought that this was the only possibility. With his own arrangements, the fake 8th grade revered martial artist, and the ambushing experts, it should have been enough to kill 7 or 8 of them. But in fact, they only killed 10. In other words, his side had performed better than usual. But if the Haymo people had joined in, the results of the battle would not have been so little. It was obvious that they were lacking a great force. Moreover, this force was something that he had expected but did not appear. This made him extremely depressed. The Haymo people? Tai Butian's eyes showed a trace of understanding. You talked to them? Yes, the Saber King of the Haymo clan had promised to help us annihilate this group of people. Chu Yang said sullenly, I have also talked to the prison. Even if they went there themselves, they would have been allowed to enter as long as they took out my token. But from the results of this battle, it seems that they did not participate. What is going on? So that's how it is. Tai Butian smiled, but it is not bad. Minister's plan to drive the tiger to swallow the wolf did not succeed, but the Haymo people will still be here for a while. Chu Yang pondered for a moment and then issued a series of orders. Cheng'ong, you and Qin Yutong's people who have been monitoring this time, immediately reel in the net. My request is that not even a mouse can escape. Cheng'ong complied. These were the people that Chu Yang controlled in Tang Xinsheng's intelligence network. The number of people was extremely large. There were close to 1,000 people. If they wanted to cut the weeds and eliminate the roots, they would not have done it so cleanly. Mobilize the troops on both sides. Use the largest number of troops that can be mobilized and order the local officials to cooperate. No one is allowed to interfere with Butian Pavilion's operations. This operation is completely in your hands. If anyone dares to stop you, they will be punished like traitors. Try to eliminate them all in one fell swoop. The other side had already failed to break out of the prison. If they were smart enough, they would not try again. Chapter 164. Part 4 Iron Cloud Mending the Heavens, Chapter 171. Play, Play 3091200. Because if Tang Xinsheng was not dead, they could have rescued him and then chased him down until they were heavily surrounded. That would have been a foolproof plan. Moreover, they could have cut the weeds and eliminated the roots. But Chu Yang did not do that. The only possibility was that Tang Xinsheng was already dead. I will send someone with a command seal to accompany him. Give him the right to command the troops. Tai Butian knew that Chu Yang was about to make a big move, so he made a prompt decision. There is no time to lose. Let's go. Chu Yang waved his hand. Cheng Ong received the order and immediately rushed out. Order the entire city to search the Du courtyard. If there are any missing prostitutes, or if there are any missing girls from decent families, report it immediately. Then lock down that area. What happened to the 8th grade revered martial artist who pretended to be Tang Xinsheng? Chu Yang asked. He perished with 2 enemies. Wu Qianqian's expression was a little sad. Perished together? Chu Yang was stunned. An 8th grade revered martial artist died? Tai Butian was a little distressed. Iron Cloud was not like Golden Horse Rider's department. An 8th grade revered martial artist was a top fighter here. He did not expect Chu Yang to sacrifice him like this. He was from the He Mo clan. Chu Yang rolled his eyes and said, I see. Since he was from the He Mo clan, he did not feel distressed. However, it is a little strange. An 8th grade revered martial artist perished together with the enemy. Moreover, it was a sneak attack. Chu Yang raised his eyebrows. Could it be a king-level master? Or a command horse rider? According to the prison's report, there should be 2 8th grade revered martial artists. Wu Qianqian read the report carefully and said with certainty, That's not bad. Chu Yang frowned and thought for a while. He turned to Tai Butian and said, Tai, Butian Pavilion must be a secret force in the future. We have become too big of a target. Tai Butian nodded and said, That's right. Butian Pavilion cannot stay here any longer. Without a king-level master, it is too dangerous. However, I am prepared for this. He looked at Chu Yang and smiled. Do you remember the first time you went to Butian Pavilion? Chu Yang's eyes lit up. Over there, I've already arranged for a troop of 30,000 guards to surround the area. Tai Butian smiled. A large troop of 30,000 people has completely surrounded that area like an iron bucket. However, they didn't interfere with each other. That place is my ideal heaven-mending pavilion. The previous heaven-mending pavilion was not worthy of that place. But now, Tai Butian chuckled, when is Minister Chu going to move over? The sooner the better. Chu Yang said, I'm somewhat worried that the people of Golden Horse Rider's department will lose their minds and attack this place. They hadn't formed a powerful fighting force yet, so they would probably be defeated in a single blow. Although we can use the secret mechanisms to preserve our manpower, it would not be good if Heaven Mending Pavilion's headquarters were destroyed. Tai Butian's words were very obvious. It was because of Chu Yang's hard work during this period that Butian Pavilion was worthy of its name. I want to take a trip to the prison. Tai Butian said, I want to see the guards there. While we are at it, we can also take a look at the battle strength of Diwu Qingrou's core subordinates. Tai Butian stood up right after she finished speaking. She had originally wanted to wait for Chu Yang to exchange a few pleasantries with her. Unexpectedly, this fellow only raised his head and said, Oh, you want to leave? Then he turned his head and asked Wu Qianqian, Well, about this matter, does Cloud Gate Inn know? They shouldn't know yet. But with the chaos in the city, they should have some guesses. Wu Qianqian said, It's good that they don't know. Chu Yang nodded lightly and said, For this operation, can you be sure that there were no Jiang-level masters? Wu Qianqian recalled the information given by the prison and said with certainty, there were absolutely no king-level masters. Otherwise, our casualties would have been much greater, and we might not have been able to kill 10 of them. The other side's king-level masters did not come. Chu Yang frowned and said, A king-level master was seriously injured and on the verge of death, but there were no king-level masters participating in this operation. What is the reason for this? Wu Qianqian was startled. She suddenly thought of a terrifying possibility and said with a trembling voice, You mean? Yes. Chu Yang nodded and said, This is to lure the snake out of its hole. The first target should be Tai Yu, and the second target should be me. Because something happened in the prison, whether it is me or Tai Yu, one of us has to go and take a look. And as long as we go out, it will be his chance. These words made Tai Butian, who had already walked to the door, stop. But after thinking about it, Tai Budin still stepped out resolutely and said, If the soldiers are sacrificing themselves while I'm afraid of death and don't even dare to go to the post-war consolation ceremony, then I, Tai Budin, am no longer fit to be Tai Yun Tai. I am not against you going, but I want to remind the 2 shadow guards. You must not let your guard down in this operation. Chu Yang said lightly. In the void, the 2 shadows suddenly appeared and nodded at Chu Yang. Then he escorted Tai Butian out. With a large entourage at his back, he quickly left Butian Pavilion. I also want to go out for a while. Chu Yang watched Tai Butian and the others leave and said quietly, Then how will you go out? Wu Qianqian asked with concern. I will not wear a mask and go out like a target. Chu Yang smiled proudly and said, I have my own plans. Also, you two do one more thing. What is it? I think that this king-level leader who is hiding in the dark and waiting to assassinate me is definitely his target. Chu Yang laughed mischievously. Although we do not know his exact location, we are sure that he is nearby. You can play with him. See how much this king-level leader can endure. Just treat it as practice. King-level leader Kong had been hiding in the tree for more than 4 hours. For 4 hours he didn't move at all. This kind of hiding had almost become his instinct. He saw Tai Yun Tai enter Butian Pavilion. He also saw many people going in and out. But after watching for a long time, he could not be sure which one was King of Hell Chu. Then he saw Tai Butian leave Butian Pavilion and go in the direction of the prison. He originally thought that King of Hell Chu was also in Tai Butian's team. But after following for a while, he found that he was not. Moreover, there was more than one master's aura floating around Tai Butian. He did not dare to act rashly. Therefore, he turned back at the first possible moment. Could King of Hell Chu not come out? While he was waiting, his eyes suddenly lit up and his body tensed up. Suddenly, many people in black rushed out of Butian Pavilion. They stood vigilantly at the entrance of Butian Pavilion. Their eyes were sharp as they observed every corner. This kind of team was dozens of feet away from the entrance. The security was so tight that it made people stare in awe. Moreover, everyone was fully focused. Even when Tai Badian came out earlier, there wasn't such a grand display of extravagance. Kong Shang Xian immediately determined that King of Hell Chu was coming out. Right now, if a person came out, it did not matter if he was wearing a mask or not. It did not matter if he was young or old. Kong Shang Xian would immediately make a move. However, even after a long while, there was still no movement at all. Those people in black stood there like wooden pillars for a while. Then, as if something had happened, they hurriedly went back in. King-level leader Kong's hand silently inserted itself into the trunk of the tree. They had been waiting for a long time. Completely wasted, King-level leader Kong scolded in his heart. But before he could catch his breath, there was a sudden whoosh, and the men in black who had just entered rushed out at the same time, quickly forming a protective formation. Their movements were so fast that they were caught off guard. King-level Master Kong was caught off guard. So, he immediately activated his martial power. He even moved his palm and the muscles of his back. Then, he gently moved the saber on his back. He moved it to the best position for him to attack as soon as possible. The loud neigh of a horse came from Butian Pavilion. It made Kong Shang Xian's entire body tense up. He suddenly felt a rush of desire in his heart. This horse. It must be. This horse really came out. This horse was indeed a divine steed. Like a black dragon, it rushed out of Butian Pavilion. But Kong Shang Xian was so angry that he almost could not breathe. There was no one on the horse's back. Hey! A loud roar sounded. King-level leader Kong became alert again. Could it be that King of Hell Chu is going to jump on the horse? He only saw a short person running out of Butian Pavilion. As he ran, he shouted, "Quick! Quickly stop that horse!" The horse is startled. The dozen or so black-clothed men at the gate acted at the same time and subdued the horse in a few moves. The short man panted as he ran closer. He wiped his sweat and said, "Damn it, I just cleaned it up and it actually ran out. Many thanks for everyone's." He led the horse back. Then the people in black also laughed and walked in. Kong Shang-Xen was stunned. What is going on? This kind of thing happened one after another. Finally, Kong Shang-Xen understood that the other side was either deliberately playing with him or they were practicing. But this kind of practice did not seem to have any effect. The biggest possibility was that he was being played with. This kind of realization made Kong Shang-Xen so angry that his eyes turned black. Could it be that he did not just wait for nothing, but was also being played with? Kong Shang-Xen's belly was about to explode. But no matter how angry he was, he would not act rashly. Barely suppressing the anger in his heart, Kong Shang-Xen knew that if he continued to wait, he would only be played even more miserably by the other side. Right now, he had two choices. First, if the other side did this, could it be King of Hell Chu's plan? Could it be that King of Hell Chu is inside right now? If so, what would happen if he just went in? The second choice was, of course, to retreat. Seeing that it was already noon, Kong Shang-Xen could not make up his mind. At this time, he suddenly had a new idea. Under the noon sun, on the main road leading to Butian Pavilion, a person came from afar. His face was covered with a hideous mask. His black robe fluttered in the wind. Just like that, he walked on the road like a ghost that had walked out of hell, gloomy and cold. Second update. Begging for votes. There will be more tonight. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.